Chapter 499. Charge. A majestic roar sounded out as countless Chinese players rushed towards Fragrant Moon City like a massive flood. It was as if they were going to sweep away everything in their path, giving off a shocking aura. The countless defenders on the city walls all had serious looks on their faces as they looked at the countless Chinese players rushing over. They understood that this battle would not be easy, so none of them dared to be careless. Tranquil and Hongmin stood together on the city walls with serious looks on their faces. Looking at the Chinese side attacking, there was no room for reconciliation, so they ordered, "Fire!" Swish, swish, swish. The defending soldiers drew their bows and released arrows that tore through the air, drawing arcs in the air as countless arrows rained down like heavy rain. After a short moment, some casualties appeared on the Chinese side. However, the casualties weren't high. The first wave of players to charge into the fray were equipped with simple wooden shields. Although these wooden shields couldn't block the arrows of the Tier 1 soldiers, they could easily block the arrows of countless players. The Vietnamese side had a total of 5 million soldiers, and if they took out the elderly and children, they would have 3 million soldiers. On the other hand, the Chinese side had 6 million soldiers, so the Chinese side had a numerical advantage. However, in terms of sieging, the defending side had made ample preparations, so they had an advantage. As such, it was not a big deal that the Chinese side had more people, and it was hard to say who would win. The Vietnamese side and the Chinese side started a fight, and both sides' eyes were bloodshot. The enmity between the two sides was finally going to be resolved today, and only one side would survive. The Chinese side ferociously charged, while the Vietnamese side vigorously resisted. Neither side wanted to lose. Fire! Waves of arrows rained down from the city walls, and the sharp arrows pierced through the clouds, causing countless people to feel quite shocked. This caused many Chinese players to suffer casualties. The Chinese side also started to counterattack. Because they were within range of the arrows, waves of arrows rained down on the city walls, and the Vietnamese side had to raise a shield wall to defend. Very quickly, the massive wave of players arrived at the bottom of Fragrant Moon City, and players took out ladders, ropes, and all sorts of climbing tools as they prepared to scale the city walls. The defenders on the city walls carried all sorts of heavy objects, such as rocks and trees, and threw them at the people scaling the city walls. These heavy objects posed a great resistance to the ordinary players. Because it was so tall and so heavy, if it fell, someone would definitely be injured. However, for people with high cultivation, it was a different matter. That was because people with high cultivation had the power to block the heavy objects that were smashing down. If one wanted to injure them, one would need to infuse their cultivation power into the object with someone of the same cultivation level as them. Only then would the object be able to injure them. It was obvious that not all of the Stage 1 soldiers were on the wall, so when the Stage 1 soldiers attacked, many Chinese people took the opportunity to climb up the wall and quickly climbed up. Seeing that the situation was not looking good, Hu Ming ordered all of the archers to turn towards the people climbing the town walls. The countless archers obeyed and aimed their arrows downwards. At such a close distance, and because they had to climb the city walls, it was not easy to block them. Arrows easily pierced into the Chinese people's bodies. Cries of agony rang out as blood splattered everywhere. Their bodies also fell from the sky. The Chinese archers also started to ferociously shoot, and wave after wave of arrows continuously rained down on the town walls. Soon, many Vietnamese people were killed. At that moment, the Vietnamese people poured out barrels of kerosene, wanting to burn the Chinese people below. With so much kerosene, once it started to burn, it would immediately form a sea of flames. Once this sea of flames formed, countless Chinese people would be injured or killed. At the same time, the Chinese people's attacking momentum would be suppressed, causing their morale to plummet. However, the Chinese people were prepared for this. As the sea of flames formed, they threw out bags of white powder, which gave off a bone-chilling aura as they spread out. The ground instantly started to freeze, and the kerosene was also frozen, unable to burn at all. This type of powder was called ice powder, and once it landed on something, it would instantly freeze and seal that thing in ice. After seeing that the kerosene was no longer effective, the defenders continued to use their bows and arrows to attack, while the Chinese people vigorously counterattacked. The battle was incredibly intense, and people from both sides continuously died. From a high vantage point, Fragrant Moon City was surrounded by enemies. There were many people climbing the town walls nearby, and countless people in the distance continued to rush over. Fragrant Moon City was in a complete mess, and many people hurriedly ran to the town walls to replenish their defenses. There were many people standing on the town walls, defending against the attacks from below. The battle between the two sides was incredibly loud, and shouts, killing, and cries continuously sounded out. This was an incredibly shocking battle. Zhao Fu, Bai Rusheng, and Xiao Su stood in the air. Zhao Fu looked down at the situation below and felt that it was about time. So he turned and said to Bai Rusheng and Xiao Su, "That's enough. Please act according to the plan." Hearing this, Bai Rusheng nodded and flew towards Fragrant Moon City. Instantly, two powerful auras enveloped Fragrant Moon City. That powerful aura was like a raging gale, causing many people to feel fear. On the town walls, Tranquil and Hongmin also exploded out with terrifying auras, blocking Bai Rusheng and Xiao Su's auras. "The two of you, I never thought that you would work together with an otherworlder and listen to his orders. What, does he not want to act?" Tranquil said as she looked at Bai Rusheng in the air. She then looked at Zhao Fu in the distance, and her heart sank. It was indeed him. Not much time had passed, and he had already become a city lord. What's more, he gave off an incredibly dangerous aura. Of course, Xiao Su wouldn't tell them the real reason, so he coldly harumphed and said, "It's best if you surrender now. Perhaps you'll be able to keep your lives. Otherwise, only death awaits you." "Ha ha!" Standing beside Tranquil, Hongmin loudly laughed as he said, "Do you really think that the two of you can beat us? What a joke." Also, Bai Rusheng, "I misunderstood last time, but that person framed me, causing us to fight," Hongmin said as he pointed at Zhao Fu in the distance. Hongmin was thinking that if he told Bai Rusheng about this, they would definitely turn against each other, causing their alliance to crumble. That way, the Vietnamese side would be able to easily win. Even though he had been in the wrong last time, and not only had he suffered heavy losses, but he had also caused many people in White Leaf City to die. Bai Rusheng most likely wouldn't tolerate that person framing him. After all, that person was the reason why so many people in White Leaf City had died. White Leaf City and that Shin's legatee should be enemies. Chapter 500. Don't try to sow discord between me and that person. Instead, think about you. Bai Rusheng coldly harumphed and said something that surprised him. In actuality, Xiao Su had already told Bai Rusheng about this in private. Back then, Bai Rusheng had been quite angry because no one liked to take the blame. Bai Rusheng had caused many people to die in White Leaf City, and under normal circumstances, he would definitely take revenge. However, things were different now. Bai Rusheng was simply too powerful. He had 8 city lords and 45 soldiers, and the 2 million players seemed to be more obedient to him. If Bai Rusheng resisted, not only would he die, but all of White Leaf City would be massacred. Because of the disparity in strength, Bai Rusheng had to take a step back. Hu Ming had never thought that Bai Rusheng would say such a thing, and his gaze became cold as he said, "Don't you want to take revenge for those who died in the battle? Even though I was the main cause, if you help me kill that person, I'll let you do whatever you want of me. How about that?" Hu Ming did not want to let off the person who had killed his adoptive father. However, with that person's strength, it would be very difficult for him to kill him by himself. If Bai Rusheng and Tranquil worked together, the 3 city lords would be able to kill that person. At the same time, they would be able to resolve this battle. If that was the case, he would be willing to let Bai Rusheng do whatever he wanted to him. Bai Rusheng sighed inwardly. Although this proposal was very tempting, how could he agree? Just as he was about to refuse, a burst of laughter sounded out, causing Bai Rusheng and Xiao Su to tremble and retreat. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he looked at Hu Ming. He stretched out a hand and beckoned at Hu Ming as he said, "If you want to kill me, come at me. I killed your adoptive father, and he died a very painful death." You. Hu Ming immediately felt a wave of anger. His adoptive father was the most important person to him, or else he wouldn't have risked everything to attack Whiteleaf City. However, this person who had killed his adoptive father dared to act so arrogantly and talk about how he had killed his adoptive father. How could Hu Ming endure this? A terrifying aura exploded out as a blue aura flame appeared, and the bricks under his feet continuously shattered. "I'll kill you!" Hu Ming roared, and his body turned into a blue blur as he charged toward Zhao Fu. At this time, Tran Xiangyue noticed by rushing and Xiao Su's expressions and immediately felt a sense of foreboding. She immediately flew out, wanting to stop Hu Ming from rushing forward. However, when the two of them flew out of the city walls, 7 terrifying auras soared into the sky, causing the weather to change. The 7 of them instantly surrounded Tran Xiangyue and Hu Ming. At the same time, by rushing and Xiao Su's side as they joined in. Immediately, Tran Xiangyue and Hu Ming felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. Their expressions were stiff and stunned. How was this possible? Sensing the 7 people's auras, Zhao Fu could tell that they were all city lords. There were already 5 system city lords, and the other 2 were city lord from basic cities. This did not include Prince Qin. After being surrounded by 9 city lords, Tran Xiangyue understood why by rushing had insisted on cooperating with Prince Qin despite knowing that he was the mastermind. With such massive power, they had no choice but to cooperate. Hu Ming was greatly startled and understood that he had fallen into a trap. However, he had never thought that the other side would be hiding such a powerful force. Not only was he in danger, but he had also dragged Tran Xiangyue into this as well. Zhao Fu had a smile on his face as he looked at Tran Xiangyue and Hu Ming. Following this, a cold look appeared in his eyes as he said, "Hurry up and kill them to end this battle." Yes, Qin's 7 generals obeyed and unleashed their most powerful attacks. By rushing and Xiao Su also attacked, and the terrifying attacks of the 9 city lords shook the heavens. The battlefield below was also affected, and sensing the heaven-toppling auras, the countless Chinese players were delirious with joy. They had never thought that their side would have 10 city lords, and they would be able to easily defeat the 2 system city lords. The Vietnamese people's expressions were incredibly unsightly, and their hearts sank. It was likely that they were going to suffer this time. The reason why Zhao Fu hadn't had Bai Qi and the others reveal themselves was because he wanted to lure Hu Ming and Tran Xiangyue out. This was to prevent the people within the city from helping them, and it was also to prevent them from escaping with the city creation stone. Otherwise, why would Zhao Fu intentionally provoke Hu Ming? If everything went according to plan, the battle would most likely end soon. Zhao Fu personally took control of the battlefield, and his voice was incredibly dignified, making it so that everyone could hear him. "Listen to my orders. All of you attack the western, southern, and northern sides. Qin will attack the eastern side, which has the most people." The countless Chinese players below relaxed. Qin was finally going to act, and he was attacking the eastern side, which had the most people. This greatly reduced the pressure on them. At the same time, they understood that victory was already in their grasp, so they excitedly attacked the other sides. If they could take Fragrant Moon City, not only would they be able to take revenge, but they would also be able to obtain all of the items within. The Vietnamese players on the eastern side looked quite afraid, and their bodies slightly trembled. They were about to face the legendary Qin. Groups of soldiers giving off powerful auras walked out from the tide of players, and the atmosphere on the battlefield instantly changed. The aura of 450,000 Qin soldiers completely overwhelmed the 600,000 or so soldiers on the eastern side, making it difficult for the other side to breathe. Fire! Suddenly, a loud cry sounded out as countless arrows containing immense force tore through the air and shot towards the eastern side. The Vietnamese players quickly reacted and raised their shields, but the arrows that Qin shot out were not on the same level as normal players. Bang, bang, bang. Muffled explosions sounded out as countless arrows pierced through the shields and the people holding them. Even though some of the better shields weren't pierced, some of the people holding them were sent flying. Only a small portion of the stage 1 soldiers were able to block the arrows. Instantly, a massive rain of arrows descended, killing or injuring countless Vietnamese players. They had been careless, and they had thought that Qin's arrows would be the same as normal players, causing them to suffer greatly. The arrows that Qin shot out were incredibly powerful, and not only did he use ordinary arrows, but he also used ballistic. Qin had nurtured ordinary archers, and their archer skills were top-notch. Adding on their equipment and cultivation, the arrows that they shot out were incredibly powerful. As for ballistae, they were incredibly powerful, and Qin had spent a lot of time researching them. They were all crafted with blue-grade materials. Chapter 501. After a volley of arrows, the Vietnamese people on the city walls wanted counterattack. Even though Qin's arrows were quite terrifying, they couldn't just sit and wait for death. But suddenly, a chill came over them. A ghostly aura came out of nowhere and enveloped most of them in an instant. The surroundings instantly became dark, and an eerie aura filled the air. The gray, ghostly moon in the sky gave off eerie moonlight, causing people's hairs to stand on end. Arg! Ghosts howled as they rushed out and leapt at the Vietnamese people. Facing the ghostly ocean of attacks, the Vietnamese people screamed in fear and started to run for their lives. The few people on the eastern city walls who weren't covered by the ghostly chi heard the screams and immediately retreated, not daring to go any closer. In just an instant, the eastern city walls fell silent, and the atmosphere was filled with a strange aura. Sensing the changes on the eastern city walls, the Chinese people attacked the other 3 city walls even more ferociously, and they all thought to themselves, as expected from Qin, he's taken control of the eastern city walls, and they're now one step closer to victory. Brothers, charge! Kill all of the Vietnamese people and take all of their things. After a loud roar, the Chinese people's attacks became even more ferocious, while the Vietnamese people's expressions became quite unsightly, and their morale once again plummeted. The 2 Vietnamese city lords, who were locked in a bitter battle in the sky, couldn't even take care of themselves. If they were even the slightest bit careless, they would die. Seeing that the eastern city walls were under control, Zhao Fu took out a gray stone orb and unleashed stone puppets. A formless energy spread out, and massive rocks gathered, forming 5 10-meter tall stone giants. After these stone giants appeared, Zhao Fu sent his power into the stone orb in his hand. The stone orb gave off a buzzing sound, and a wave of power lifted the 5 stone giants up, causing them to slowly rise up and land on the city walls. Because the 5 stone giants didn't have any life and were just puppets, they weren't affected by the illusions. These 5 stone giants were transported to the city wall by Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu gave them the order to kill. Now, the people who had been pulled into the Nether Ghost realm stood there like straws. The rock giant swung its arms, creating a powerful gale. If it didn't directly smash people into pieces, it would send them flying. Those who were sent flying fell from a height of 30 meters, and their fates would definitely not be good. Fresh blood and dismembered corpses covered the entire eastern city wall. The 5 stone giants were like harvesters, harvesting one life after another. Although the 5 stone giants were already very fast, Zhao Fu still felt that they were too slow. He didn't know how long it would take to kill them all. Therefore, Zhao Fu extended his hand and pointed. 10 Calamity Knights, who were wrapped in black fog and riding skeleton horses, led the skeletons onto the stage. Skeletons were undead creatures and only had a bit of intelligence, so they were immune to illusions. Moreover, these skeletons had some disaster attributes, so they had some intelligence. If they were ordinary skeletons, they would only have instincts. The skeletons' heads flickered with black spirit flames, and they gave off terrifying auras as they slowly climbed up the city walls. Under Zhao Fu's orders, they also started to kill. With the 150,000 skeletons joining in, the speed at which they were killing became many times faster. After a while, Zhao Fu felt that it was about time and ordered his people to dispel the nether ghost realm. The city walls were covered with corpses, and blood spurted everywhere, causing the stench of blood to spread out. Only now did Zhao Fu order Qin's soldiers to attack. Zhao Fu wasn't so stupid as to use his soldiers to fight to the death. Since there was an easier way, why would he fight head-on? The stone giants and countless skeletons continued to advance towards the two sides of the city walls. Zhao Fu wouldn't feel any heartache if they died, as he could summon them at any time. However, Qin's soldiers were different. They were lives, so Zhao Fu had to treat them with care. Qin's soldiers easily took control of the eastern city walls and opened the city gates. Countless Qin's soldiers flooded in, and even though some people ran over and tried to retaliate, they were quickly killed by Qin's soldiers. After the eastern city walls were breached, the Vietnamese people's morale plummeted. Because of the stone giants and skeletons on the northern and southern city walls, the Chinese people were able to reach them as well. After being attacked from both sides, the Vietnamese people quickly collapsed. Now, only the western city walls were able to resist. However, after hearing that the eastern and southern city walls had been breached, the Vietnamese people scattered in all directions. They'd already lost, and if they didn't run, they would die. Following this, the western city walls were quickly taken down by the Chinese people. By now, all of Fragrant Moon City had been taken down by the Chinese people, and the Vietnamese people had lost. Countless Chinese excitedly rushed into the city, slaughtering the Vietnamese people and taking everything of value. Some people even lewdly smiled as they leapt at the Vietnamese women. Immediately, Fragrant Moon City fell into chaos, and pitiful cries sounded out. The scene was quite tragic. This was the consequence of losing. Qin's soldiers stood on the eastern city walls and did not enter Fragrant Moon City. After all, they had promised not to touch anything within the city. Moreover, even though Fragrant Moon City had lost, it still had some ability to resist. Since Qin's soldiers did not want to take anything, Qin's soldiers would not help kill them. Looking at the sky, the two Vietnamese city lords were covered with wounds under the attacks of the 9 city lords, and their clothes were dyed red with blood. They looked quite wretched. "Xiang Yue, I'll stop them. You should run," Hoi Ming said earnestly as he looked at the 9 city lords surrounding him and Xiang Yue. Fragrant Moon City had already been breached, and they had already lost. If they did not run, they would die. He had dragged Xiang Yue into this and implicated her. Hoi Ming felt quite guilty, and he decided to do his best to help her escape. Xiang Yue sighed and looked quite downcast. She understood that this was the only thing she could do. It was a pity that even if she escaped, Fragrant Moon City's residents would still be slaughtered. However, as long as she could escape, she would have a chance. Xiang Yue's expression became serious as she hatefully looked at Zhao Fu and nodded to Hoi Ming, saying, "Today's enmity will not only be yours, but mine as well. I'll definitely take revenge." Hoi Ming gave a pleased smile, and a terrifying power suddenly burst forth from his body. Hoi Ming's hair gradually became white, and he aged. He was burning his life force to obtain even more power. Boom! Hoi Ming slashed out with all of his strength, causing the heavens and earth to dim. A massive crescent moon-like saber light, containing incredibly sharp saber chi, swept out like a gale, seeming to tear space apart. Chapter 502. Even though she wouldn't be able to obtain the City Creation Stone, being able to stay alive was already quite good. Moreover, with the City Lord Seal in her hands, even if Wu Ming conquered Fragrant Moon City, he wouldn't be able to truly control Fragrant Moon City, and she would still have a chance to take it back. With that in mind, Xiang Yue quickly ran to the side, and the scenery around her flashed by. Her secret technique was incredibly fast. Clang, 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 gigantic sounds of chains rang out. Xiang Yue was startled because she felt that her speed seemed to have slowed down. However, just as Xiang Yue wanted to do something, countless chains had already extended out from the void, locking her firmly in midair. Chi, chi, Muffled sound sounded out, causing Tran Xiangyue to look over. Her pupils constricted as she saw that Hu Ming's body had been pierced by chains. There wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't damaged, and he had a look of shock on his face as he died. The scene was incredibly silent, and blood slowly dripped from the air. Zhao Fu had been watching from the side the entire time, and if he hadn't acted, he would have thought that Hu Ming was just a decoration. "Your Majesty, this subordinate was useless." Qin and the other generals came to Zhao Fu's side and lowered their heads as they apologized. They had almost allowed a city lord to escape. If it was a one-on-one battle, it would be forgivable, but it had been a one-on-one battle. Zhao Fu lightly nodded and didn't pay it too much mind. After all, Hu Ming had used all of his life force to unleash that final attack, and it was incredibly powerful and difficult to defend against. If they had taken it head-on, they would have been heavily injured. However, because of this, Zhao Fu had been able to easily kill Hu Ming. Zhao Fu grabbed at the air and took the City Lord seal that had floated out of Hu Ming's body. Zhao Fu came to Tran Xianyue's side and looked at her with his blood-red eyes as he coldly smiled and said, "Do you think you can escape? Do you remember what I said back then?" Tran Xianyue furiously glared at Zhao Fu before turning her head to the side, not wanting to pay any attention to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu didn't mind, and he lightly stretched out his hand and grabbed her neck. Sensing that she was about to die, Tran Xianyue started to struggle, but Zhao Fu continued to apply force. "Your Highness." Xianru smiled as she walked over to Zhao Fu's side. Because Xianru could see fate, Zhao Fu often brought her with him. Now that Xianru had a flight stone, she could stand in the air. When Zhao Fu saw her approaching, he understood her purpose, so he also retracted his hand. However, he grabbed at Tran Xianyue's stomach through the air. Tran Xianyue cried out in pain and coughed up a mouthful of blood. A City Lord seal giving off a green light slowly floated out of Tran Xianyue's body, and Zhao Fu grabbed it, causing Tran Xianyue's mind to wither. The chains binding Tran Xianyue slowly loosened. Not only did Tran Xianyue not have a City Lord seal, but her cultivation had also been sealed by Zhao Fu's City Lord seal's power. Right now, she could only be an ordinary person. "Why not kill me?" Tran Xianyue looked at Zhao Fu hatefully, feeling quite surprised. She had sensed that Zhao Fu was about to kill her, but he had suddenly stopped. Zhao Fu did not reply to her question, and he turned to Xianru and said, "I'll leave her to you." Xianru lightly nodded before looking at the angry Tran Xianyue. Facing Xianru's gaze, Tran Xianyue had a bad feeling. Zhao Fu came above Fragrant Moon City and said loudly, "I've already killed Flowing Water City's City Lord, and I've captured Fragrant Moon City's City Lord. Those who surrender can keep their lives, but only indigenous residents. Also, Chinese residents, please do not attack those who surrender. If they don't surrender, you could do whatever you want to them." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, some of the Vietnamese indigenous residents immediately knelt on the ground and chose to surrender. The other Chinese players did not dare to attack either. Firstly, Qin had already spoken, and after seeing how terrifying Qin was, they did not dare to offend Qin. Secondly, Fragrant Moon City had been taken down by Qin. However, even though they could not attack the indigenous residents who surrendered, they could freely kill the other Vietnamese players and indigenous residents who refused to surrender. Looking at the pitiful scene below, Tran Xianyue felt quite reluctant. These were her residents, and even though she was quite unwilling, she still said loudly, "Everyone from Fragrant Moon City and Flowing Water City, since things have come to this, it's best not to resist and choose to surrender." Zhao Fu looked at Tran Xianyue in surprise. He had never thought that she would try to persuade them to surrender. However, he understood that she did not want those innocent people to die. Hearing their city lord's words, many of Fragrant Moon City's residents chose to surrender. However, most of Flowing Water City's residents still fiercely resisted. Zhao Fu did not say anything else, and he took the two City Lord seals and flew towards the City Hall. Zhao Fu first conquered and relocated Flowing Water City. It was a pity that it had only just been relocated, so he did not obtain any EXP, achievement points, or war points. There was only some fate, which was even less than that of an ordinary system main city. It seemed that cities could not be relocated so easily. Following this, Zhao Fu went to Fragrant Moon City Hall and chose to conquer and relocate it. System announcement. Congratulations, you have conquered a system main city and obtained 5,000 achievement points. System announcement. Because you are a legatee, you have conquered a system main city and obtained a large amount of the region's fate. System announcement. You have relocated a system main city and obtained 860,000 EXP. System announcement. Congratulations, you have obtained 200 war points. System announcement. Your chaotic world stone steel has reached level 4 and can be exchanged for legendary grade items. Zhao Fu looked through these system announcements and did not pay much attention to them. However, there were 3 other system announcements that caught Zhao Fu's attention. The first was a region announcement. This region's 2 Vietnamese system main cities have been destroyed, and in the future, this region will no longer spawn Vietnamese players. If you want to recover, you must re-establish a Vietnamese system main city. The second was a country announcement, which both China and Vietnam could hear. The Mu Viet region has been conquered by China, and Vietnam's overall fate has decreased while China's overall fate has increased. The third was a world announcement, which stated that the conditions have been fulfilled. Activating border medallions. From today onwards, border medallions will appear all over the world. Anyone who uses a border medallion will be able to go to a country's border. These 3 system announcements were all quite important. The first was a region announcement, which informed everyone in the region that after Vietnamese players died, they would no longer spawn in this region, and this region would belong to China. In actuality, Zhao Fu had expected this. When he had relocated 4 system main cities, he had received a similar system announcement. However, that system announcement was a country announcement, and all of China could hear it. This meant that the Vietnamese players in this region were at a disadvantage and could only be bullied by the Chinese side. Chapter 503. The second system announcement was even more important than the first system announcement, as this concerned the entire fate of a kingdom and the fate of a kingdom. When this system announcement sounded out, all of the Vietnamese and Chinese players were shocked. They had been paying close attention to this battle, so they quickly heard that the Vietnamese side had lost. However, most people were not too surprised, as they were facing Qin. With Qin's terrifying abilities, how could ordinary people be a match for him? As such, they were not too surprised that Qin had won. However, what shocked them was that destroying the 2 Vietnamese system main cities would increase the overall fate of a kingdom. However, after thinking about it, they understood that more territory meant more fate. In the future, that region would belong to China, so the fate of that region would belong to China. This was a good thing. The more fate China had, the better. The more fate they had, the more opportunities they would obtain, and they would be able to do things more smoothly. Of course, they would also become more powerful. After all, the strength of a kingdom's fate determined its future. When this system announcement sounded out, the Vietnamese side was greatly startled and cursed at Qin for being ruthless and tyrannical. The Chinese side was delighted and praised Qin for bringing glory to all of China. The third system announcement was the appearance of a border medallion. Zhao Fu wondered if there were many of these border medallions. If there were many, then people would flood into the border regions, causing the already chaotic border regions to become even more bloody and cruel. Zhao Fu felt that there were not many realm medallions here, but there were not few either. If there were too many, a war between nations would erupt, and now was not the time. After all, if they wanted to fight, they would have to wait until all of the region's passageways were opened. Zhao Fu felt that these border medallions were just a prelude to deepen the enmity between the kingdoms in order to prepare for a massive war in the future. As such, there would be many border medallions. The appearance of the border order made it difficult for Qin to attack the border areas. Zhao Fu thought about it and gave up the idea of attacking other border areas. After putting away Fragrant Moon City Creation Stone, Zhao Fu went outside. By now, The battle had concluded, and most of the Vietnamese players had been killed. However, a small portion of the Vietnamese players had taken advantage of the Chinese players' looting to escape. There were roughly 80,000 to 90,000 Vietnamese that had escaped, but they didn't seem to pose much of a threat in the future, so there was no need to worry too much about them. On the Chinese side, there were roughly 400,000 casualties, which was a good victory. After all, the Vietnamese side had 2 million or so people, and losing so few people was already quite good for the Chinese side. Apart from losing a few skeletons, Qin's side suffered very few losses. This was because Qin's soldiers didn't participate in many battles at all. It was all Qin who used the players to do all sorts of things. There were 320,000 people who had surrendered, and 270,000 of them were Fragrant Moon City's residents. Only 50,000 people from Flowing Water City were willing to surrender, and the rest chose to resist to the death. Some people had escaped with the Vietnamese players. The countless players who had survived all looked quite delighted because they had all made great gains. Just the equipment and money they had picked up was enough to make them rich. According to the agreement, the Vietnamese side's resources, such as ores, forests, and medicinal fields, were all given to the two Chinese system main cities. Even though they had received massive benefits, the two city lords couldn't bring themselves to feel happy. Seeing that Qin had obtained so many people and 2 city lord seals, they felt incredibly fearful towards Qin. Luckily, Qin had directly left with his people, making it seem as if he didn't want to stay. Only then did the 2 city lords let out a sigh of relief. This battle had finally come to an end. After Zhao Fu returned to Qin City, he re-established the 2 Vietnamese system main cities, and Zhao Fu appointed Flowing Water City's last general, Zhang Han, as the city lord. Zhang Han was still SS grade because he hadn't found any nation legacies recently, and historical generals' corpses weren't easy to find. As such, Zhang Han was still SS grade, and his general star wasn't his main general star. However, Qin already had 2 S-grade corpses, and he was only missing an SS grade corpse and an S-grade historical general's corpse before he could create an SSS grade innate talent blood crystal. As for Fragrant Moon City's City Lord seal, Zhao Fu planned to give it to Xianru. After all, she would be by his side in the future, and giving her City Lord seal would be of great use in battle. There was also Xianru's powerful yin-yang techniques, which were already incredibly powerful and miraculous. With the City Lord seal's power, the yin-yang technique's power would become even more terrifying, and they might be of great use in critical moments. Xianru felt quite surprised. She had never thought that Zhao Fu would give the City Lord seal to her. However, seeing that Zhao Fu valued her so much, Xianru felt quite pleased and happy. After thanking him, Xianru accepted the City Lord seal. The other generals didn't have much of an opinion about giving the City Lord seal to Xianru, as they all supported Zhao Fu's decision. It was just that Xiao Jian and Zhang Dahu felt a bit disappointed because Zhang Han was Great Qin's final general. Even though there were 2 other historical generals, they were foreign generals and hadn't been with Great Qin for a long time. As such, Zhao Fu couldn't give something as important as a City Lord seal to them. After all, if it wasn't for Xianru, one of them would have obtained a City Lord seal. Only then would they be able to obtain a City Lord seal. Even though they felt a bit disappointed, they understood Zhao Fu's decision. With Qin City's current strength, there would only be more and more City Lord seals, so they didn't feel too disappointed because they would obtain them sooner or later. These 2 system main cities belonged to Vietnam, but Chinese people could use them. Even though they belonged to different countries, they belonged to the same race. However, after Chinese people used system main cities, the system main cities would only spawn Chinese indigenous residents and not Vietnamese indigenous residents. The fewer cities a race had, the fewer people there would be. If they didn't have any cities, they would perish. After taking care of these matters, Zhao Fu dismissed the generals and generals before looking at Xianru and saying, "Bring them in." Xianru lightly smiled and nodded before giving some orders to the people beside her, and the 5 women were brought into the hall. These 5 women were all incredibly beautiful, with snow-white skin and graceful figures. Their auras were quite outstanding, and they could be said to be rare beauties. After the 5 women were brought in, they looked at Zhao Fu with gazes filled with hatred, anger, and fear. Chapter 504. Of course, she was Fragrant Moon City's city lord, Tran Xiangyue. If it wasn't for the fact that she had Phoenix Chi, Shinru would not have told Zhao Fu to stop. Otherwise, Zhao Fu would have long since killed her. As a city lord, the fate she had was even greater than that of a large family. This was because at least a quarter of the region's fate belonged to her, and because she was a woman, she also had a quarter of the Phoenix Chi. As such, she was able to provide a large amount of Phoenix Chi to Qin. Zhao Fu had destroyed Fragrant Moon City, taken the city lord's seal, and killed her residents, so she looked at Zhao Fu with hatred. Apart from Tran Xiangyue, there was also Fragrant Moon City's general called Fu Qing. She was quite pretty and had an androgynous appearance. She was tall and slim, had short hair, and her chest was quite flat. She looked at Zhao Fu furiously because Zhao Fu had dared to treat her and the prestigious city lord like this. The 3rd woman was a player called Humaile. She was a celebrity in Vietnam and was quite popular. She was quite beautiful and had a slim figure. She had been forced to consume a reality fruit, and her body had entered the heaven-awakened world in the real world. The other 2 women were from the main branch of a large Vietnamese family, and they were called Yi Bangshu and Yang Shi. They had fine facial features, slim figures, and noble auras. They were both players and had consumed a reality fruit. Now, the 3 of them looked at Zhao Fu in fear because their lives were in Zhao Fu's hands. Zhao Fu could do whatever he wanted to them. Last time, when he had attacked Heavenstone City, Zhao Fu had wanted to capture women from large families to provide Qin with Phoenix Chi. Zhao Fu had not forgotten what these large families had done to Qin, so he would not show any mercy. It was a pity that, because he had used most of the players to attack Heavenstone City, he had not been able to make a move on the large families. However, this time was different. Even though he was using players to attack a system main city, he was attacking a Vietnamese city. As such, Qin could openly plunder any woman with Phoenix Chi. However, there were still very few women with Phoenix Chi. There were only a few among millions of people. This time, if they didn't include Tran Xiangyue, the city lord, and that battle general, they would only have caught 3. What do you want us to do by staying here? As soon as the 5 of them were brought in, Tran Xiangyue stared coldly at Zhao Fu and said sternly. Zhao Fu slightly frowned, but still ignored her. He stretched out his hand, and Shinru handed the 5 pieces of paper to Zhao Fu. Last time, Zhao Fu had wanted to see how the Emperor Phoenix statue absorbed Phoenix Chi, so he had brought the 2 women to the Heaven Prayer platform. Now, he did not need to go through that trouble, and he could directly confer titles in the hall. Zhao Fu opened his hand, and a formless energy spread the 5 pieces of paper in the air. Zhao Fu then took out the imperial ruler's seal and pressed it against the 5 pieces of paper. The 5 ordinary pieces of paper gave off a faint golden light and gave off a sacred and dignified aura. Oh, today, Emperor Qin will bestow Tran Xiangyue, Fu Qing, Humaile, Yi Bangshu, and Yang Shi as concubines to the Qin dynasty's fate. Tran Xiangyue's expression fell. She now understood why Zhao Fu had kept her here. He wanted her to become his woman. However, how could Tran Xiangyue agree? After all, Zhao Fu had destroyed Fragrant Moon City, killed countless residents, and even killed Hu Ming, who had a good relationship with him. I won't agree. I won't become your woman. Just kill me. Tran Xiangyue said resolutely. Seeing the city lord like this, Fu Qing also stood up and said, I don't want to either. I won't become my enemy's woman. The other 3 women's attitudes were the complete opposite. Humaile looked quite delighted. Even though she was a celebrity for Vietnam and looked quite famous, she had not become a true figure of power. It was no secret that the heaven-awakened world could devour the real world, and only some ignorant people would be fooled. Humaile wanted to find a powerful backer in the future, and if it was Qin, that would be for the best. With how powerful Qin was, he would definitely give her everything she wanted. "Your Highness, I'm still a virgin, and I'll do my best to serve your Majesty and satisfy all of your Majesty's needs." Humaile's face was a bit red, but she still gave a confident smile as she spoke. She knew that any man would care about whether or not a woman was a virgin. It had been difficult for her to preserve her virginity, and perhaps Qin Zhao would like her. Bangshu and Yang, she slightly hesitated. As women from large families, they did not care too much about this. After all, they were born as tools for marriage alliances. Whether they liked it or not, they had to marry the other party. Now that their lives were in Zhao Fu's hands, they could not resist, so it was better to let nature take its course. That way, they would have a better life in the future, and it might even help their families. "Your Majesty, we're also willing to become your concubines." Bangshu and Yang, she said respectfully as they bowed to Zhao Fu. Fu Qing could not help but coldly harumph. She felt that the other three women were quite shameless for submitting to Qin out of greed and fear of death. Zhao Fu did not mind the five people's words. He waved his hand, and the 5 pieces of paper turned into 5 rays of golden light that shot into the 5 people's bodies. Zhao Fu looked at them and said calmly, "You don't have the right to refuse." The 5 rays of golden light shot into their bodies, causing their bodies to tremble as they felt a formless energy supporting them. This was Qin's fate, and as Qin's concubines, they naturally had a massive amount of fate. At the same time, traces of golden aura rose up from their bodies and floated towards the Heaven Prayer platform, fusing into the Emperor Phoenix statue. The 5 people's Phoenix Chi caused the Emperor Phoenix statue to become much more lively, and it became even more powerful. Suddenly, Tran Xiangyue felt the changes in her body. She had already become his concubine. However, she coldly harumphed and took off the hairpin in her hair and aimed it at her neck. Even though her cultivation had been sealed and her spatial ring had been taken, everything on her body had not been taken away. "Yes, I can't resist, but I'd rather die than become your woman." Seeing this, Fu Qing took out a small blade and aimed it at her neck as she said resolutely, "This subordinate is willing to die with the city lord. I won't submit to this person." Just as they were about to cut or stab their throats, a terrifying aura exploded out, causing the air in the hall to freeze. A formless energy locked down the 2 women, who were about to commit suicide. Everyone else looked at Zhao Fu in terror. Zhao Fu's calm expression had become icy cold, and everyone could sense his fury. They understood that he was furious, and no one dared to make a sound. Chapter 505. Suddenly, the power binding the 2 of them disappeared, but Tran Xiangyue and Fu Qing did not dare to do anything because they thought about Fragrant Moon City's residents and the people they were close to. Sensing Zhao Fu's killing intent and the fact that he was a king, they knew that he would definitely do what he said. If they really dared to die, then everyone else in Fragrant Moon City would die as well, and those close to them would suffer even more. They were not afraid of death, but they had to think about Fragrant Moon City, so they stopped moving. Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes coldly looked at the 2 of them as he said, "In Qin City, there has never been a person who has dared to disobey me like this, and they would rather die than resist." He had wanted to treat them well, but they had acted like this. This caused Zhao Fu to feel quite furious, and he decided to deal with this forcefully. "What? You're not going to continue?" Zhao Fu's cold voice sounded out. Tran Xiangyue angrily cursed. "You're too despicable. You're using Fragrant Moon City's residents to threaten us." Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and ignored their words as he said coldly, "Take off your clothes." At that moment, a group of female attendants and Xianru came out of the hall, and when they heard Zhao Fu's words, they all felt quite surprised. Hearing this, Tran Xiangyue and Fu Qing felt so angry that they almost slit their own throats. "I'll say it again. Take off your clothes." Zhao Fu's voice became even colder and filled with killing intent as he looked at the 2 women. Under Zhao Fu's forcefulness, Tran Xiangyue and Fu Qing had already given up on the idea of dying. However, they simply could not bring themselves to do such a humiliating thing. Someone, Zhao Fu suddenly yelled. Tran Xiangyue and Fu Qing's expressions fell. They knew what Zhao Fu was about to do, and they hurriedly yelled, "Wait! I'll take it off." Tran Xiangyue put down her hairpin and lowered her head as she slowly took off her green dress. Beside her, Fu Qing also felt humiliated and angry as she started to take off her armor. As they took off their armor one by one, tears continuously flowed down their faces. Finally, they finished taking off their clothes, and two pure white bodies appeared in the hall. The two women still had their heads lowered in humiliation, one hand covering their breasts and the other covering their lower bodies. "Take your hands off," Zhao Fu's voice once again sounded out. Standing by the side, Xinru felt that Zhao Fu had gone a bit too far. However, seeing how angry Zhao Fu was, Xinru lowered her head and did not say anything. Tran Xiangyue and Fu Qing gritted their teeth, feeling furious and humiliated. They slowly took off their hands, revealing their bodies to Zhao Fu. Her perky breasts, her slender waist, and her lower body were all in plain sight. Zhao Fu stood up and walked step by step towards Tran Xiangyue and the other two girls. He stretched out his hands and lifted their chins, causing them to raise their heads. At that moment, the two women's eyes were completely red. Tears continuously flowed down their beautiful faces. Their cheeks were also red. The two of them had never exposed their bodies in front of so many people before. Although Tran Xiangyue felt humiliated by Zhao Fu lifting her chin, she also felt a trace of anger. She looked away and didn't meet Zhao Fu's gaze. Fu Qing stared at Zhao Fu stubbornly, as if he would remember Zhao Fu for the rest of his life. It could be said that he hated Zhao Fu to death. Just as the two women thought that Zhao Fu was about to do something to them in the hall, Zhao Fu snorted coldly, withdrew his hand, and left. Xinru followed behind Zhao Fu and left the hall with Zhao Fu. Everyone present let out a sigh of relief. As an emperor, everyone was afraid of him when he was angry. Tran Xiangyue and Fu Qing held back their tears and quickly put on their clothes. Following this, they were led by a few female attendants to a courtyard specially prepared for them. Similarly, they also met Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin here. The two of them looked at the 5 additional women and sighed. At first, they didn't understand why Zhao Fu had suddenly made them imperial concubines. They hadn't expected that Prince Qin would directly make them imperial concubines, and after thinking about it for a long time, they had decided to accept their fate. Now that things had come to this, they were powerless to resist. Even though they had become Prince Qin's legitimate women, they didn't know why Prince Qin had never touched them before. They were quite confident in their beauty, but they didn't know why Prince Qin hadn't come. Afterwards, they thought of the Emperor Phoenix, and their expressions darkened. They guessed that perhaps Prince Qin wasn't interested in them and had made them imperial concubines to use them for something. Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin didn't want to think in this direction. They would rather Prince Qin be interested in their bodies and play with them as he pleased, as at least they could be treated as women. If they stayed here, they would lose their rights as human beings and be imprisoned here forever. They would have to endure endless loneliness until the end of their lives. They truly didn't want to see such an outcome. As such, Zhao Fu hoped that no matter what Great Qin's legatee did to them, he would at least treat them as women and not something that he could casually toss aside. Now that they saw 5 Vietnamese women, even though they did not know what was going on outside, the appearance of these 5 beautiful women reduced their chances. This confirmed their suspicions, and thinking about their fates, their expressions darkened. Next to a small stream, Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on the ground, holding a fishing rod as he silently fished. Zhao Fu had unknowingly started to like fishing because it allowed him to calm down. At the same time, Zhao Fu's cultivation was quickly rising. "Your Majesty, you shouldn't be angry anymore, right?" Xinru suddenly said as she gave a trace of a smile. Zhao Fu lightly nodded. "Your Highness, are you preparing to start planning for the 3rd target?" Xinru asked in concern. Zhao Fu thought about it before shaking his head and saying, "Let's put the 3rd target aside for now. Facing 3 system main cities at once is quite difficult. So let's first satisfy the requirements for leveling up to a great city. The requirements for leveling up to a great city were 3 basic cities and 6 towns. Now, Qin had 2 basic cities and 4 towns, so he only lacked 1 basic city and 2 towns. Even though Qin already had 7 great city-level system main cities, which were far more powerful than basic cities, the requirements were the requirements, and he only needed basic cities and towns. Chapter 506. After hearing about Zhao Fu's reply, Xinru once again respectfully stood by the side and quietly fished with Zhao Fu. A while later, Zhao Fu felt that he had fished enough, so he called over Guo Binglin and Wang Ergu and had them gather information about towns and cities. In the future, Qin City would need many towns and cities to level up. As for great cities, which were system main cities, they could be found in every region, so there was nothing to worry about. Once Qin City became a capital city, it would be a royal city. Only with a royal city would one be able to establish a kingdom, and a royal city was the most basic requirement for establishing a kingdom. However, right now, Qin City was still an intermediate city, and its great cities had not leveled up yet, so it was still quite far away from becoming a royal city. After leveling up to a great city, it would not be split into basic, intermediate, and advanced cities, but 5 levels. Level 1 great cities were equivalent to system main cities, and after level 5 great cities were capital cities. Capital cities were split into 6 levels, and above level 6 were royal cities. As such, even though it looked like Qin City would be able to establish a kingdom in just a few levels, there was still a long way to go. Qin City's path was not short. Moreover, it required countless towns, cities, and great cities to level up. Only with countless cities could one be called a kingdom. How could a few cities be called a kingdom? The more information about towns and cities, the better. They would definitely be needed in the future. There was no doubt about this. Wang Ergu and Guo Binglin quickly obeyed Zhao Fu's orders and started to search for information about towns and cities. Zhao Fu told his soldiers to rest for a day and continue to attack the next day. He wanted to quickly take control of the surrounding 10,000 kilometers and increase Qin City's strength so that they could make a move against the Forest of Horrors. Within the Great Xia Dynasty's territory, CG brought Fushi's successor to the city hall of a system main city. The city hall was already packed with people. Most of the people inside looked like doctors, and they all carried small medicine boxes. Some of them even had long sails in their hands, on which were written words like "can cure all diseases, heal the dying, and heal the injured." At a glance, it was obvious that these people were quacks. The reason why so many doctors were here was naturally because the city lord's wife was seriously ill and needed urgent treatment. That was why so many doctors had come. The city lord's wife's illness was not simple. Her body was boiling hot, and she continuously sweated. It was as if there were countless bugs crawling on the surface of her body, making her look quite terrifying. Otherwise, with the city lord's power, she would have long since been cured. However, because she could not be cured, the city lord could not do anything. So he invited doctors from all over. This was already the 6th day, and the doctors they had invited a few days ago were completely useless. The city lord saw that his beloved wife was becoming weaker day by day, and he felt incredibly worried. He could only announce that anyone who could save his wife would be heavily rewarded. From tens of thousands of gold coins to hundreds of thousands of gold coins, on the 6th day, the city lord was at her wit's end. In the end, she promised to give half of the system main city to anyone who could save her. One by one, doctors entered the room to diagnose the patient. The truly good doctors could only sigh and shake their heads when they saw the patient's condition, indicating that they were unable to treat the patient. In order to swindle some money, the quack doctors randomly wrote out a bunch of useless prescriptions. Of course, the city lord had people examine these prescriptions. He knew that some quacks would sneak in, and if one took their medicine, one would become ill. As such, he strictly examined these prescriptions to prevent his beloved wife's condition from worsening. After examining a bunch of useless prescriptions, the city lord angrily ordered the quacks who had written these prescriptions to be imprisoned. He had held onto a trace of hope and thought that with so many doctors, perhaps one of them would be able to save his beloved wife. However, not a single one of them had been able to do so. At that moment, CG walked in with some people and gave a confident smile as he said, "City Lord, I have a way to save your beloved wife. I have a way to save your beloved wife." Seeing CG, the city lord's expression became serious as he said, "Dynasty legatee?" Because CG did not hide his aura, the city lord was able to tell who CG was at a glance. All city lords treated dynasty legatees with great care. However, hearing his words, the city lord felt quite delighted and hurriedly asked, "Do you really have a way?" CG earnestly nodded before saying, "I can definitely save your wife, but I have a condition." Hearing this condition, the city lord's expression became serious because what this person wanted was definitely not simple. However, for the sake of his beloved wife, the city lord still asked, "What do you want?" CG did not hide anything and raised his head as he replied, "I want you to submit to the Great Xia dynasty. Don't worry, as long as the Great Xia dynasty exists, we definitely won't mistreat you. As for China, the Great Xia dynasty is the true ruler." Indeed, he was not simple. He wanted the city lord to submit to the Great Xia dynasty. This caused the city lord to hesitate, unable to make a decision. "City lord, the woman is critically ill," a female attendant cried out as she ran over in panic. This caused the city lord's expression to fall, and he finally made a decision, saying, "All right, as long as you can save my wife, I'll submit to you." CG nodded before taking Fushi's descendant to the sick room. He first had Fushi's descendant check on the woman's condition. Following this, Fushi's descendant took out a white, jade-colored medicinal pill and fed it to the woman. In just a few moments, the woman's condition stabilized, and her body was no longer as hot as before. The insects on her body also disappeared. Seeing this, the city lord was delighted and went to the sick room to check on his beloved wife's condition. Indeed, her condition had greatly improved. 3 days later, the woman's condition had completely healed, but her body was still a bit weak. After resting for a few days, she would be fine. According to the agreement, the city lord submitted to the Great Xia dynasty. With the submission of a system-main city, the Great Xia dynasty's overall strength had increased by many times. This was especially so for the 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers, which provided Great Xia with a powerful battle force. Qin had obtained the Heaven and Earth Refining Formation, Blood God pills, high-grade medicinal pills, and Stage 1 soldiers. Normally, dynasties would only have a few tens of thousands of Stage 1 soldiers, and now that he had 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers, his strength had increased to a monstrous level. In actuality, all of this had been planned by the Great Xia dynasty. The city lord's beloved wife had only been poisoned by an ancient poison that the Great Xia dynasty had found in a historical remnant, so ordinary people wouldn't have been able to discover it. This was why CG was so confident. Even though his methods were quite despicable, throughout China's history, all of the founding emperors were wise rulers and good rulers, but they were definitely not good people. Chapter 507. Back at Qin City, Zhao Fu stood in front of 10 or so wooden cages, within which were 10 or so beasts: wolves, boars, bears, snakes, and all sorts of other creatures. These creatures were naturally king-grade creatures, and Qin City had been capturing these king-grade creatures to provide the king's crown with king's aura. Now, the king's crown's power was gradually increasing. Zhao Fu took out the king's crown, and 10 or so black sword lights shot out, piercing into their heads. The ferocious-looking beasts that had been roaring within the wooden cages instantly died, and 10 or so golden auras rose up from their bodies and floated into the king's crown. After devouring the king's aura and sensing the king's crown's power, Zhao Fu gave a satisfied smile. Now, it was time to deal with internal affairs. Before, Zhao Fu had said that Qin City needed to develop like a normal system main city, and it couldn't centralize its management and encourage the residents to do things that were beneficial to the city. First, the people who worked for Qin City would be paid. Whether they were soldiers or residents, they would all be paid a certain amount of money. With money, they would have to circulate it, or else it would be useless. Zhao Fu also encouraged Qin City to develop its businesses. Not only did it do business with outsiders, but it also did business within the city. On the streets, Zhao Fu allowed the residents to open all sorts of shops, such as restaurants, clothing stores, and general stores. He also allowed the peddlers on the streets to do the same. Qin City encouraged all sorts of businesses to develop together. With these developments, the residents' lives would become more normal, and their standard of living would naturally rise. Their loyalty to Great Qin would also increase. With Qin City's encouragement, many people saw this opportunity. There were elves, gnomes, humans, and cat people. All sorts of different races started to open their shops, and all of Qin City became quite lively. Of course, he also had to start collecting taxes. Taxes were the main source of wealth for most countries, so it was impossible for them to not collect taxes. Taxes were a good thing, and they could provide a country with countless amounts of money. However, if they weren't controlled well, they could harm the country. Normally, heavy taxes would force the residents to rebel, so they had to be strictly managed. Looking at the bustling Qin City, Zhao Fu smiled in satisfaction. A few days later, a ray of black light shot into the sky, and Qin City officially leveled up to an advanced city, which was a great city. Before, Qin City was still lacking a bit of EXP, but after conquering Fragrant Moon City, it had provided a large amount of EXP. Now that Qin City had attacked other villages, Qin City once again leveled up. Village name: Qin City, Epic, Level, Large City Village Area, 2,600 square kilometers village territory, 101,800 square kilometers popular support, 85 special stats. Territory crop yield plus 140%, territory crop growth time minus 140%, population limit plus 100%, resident stats plus 10, soldier stats plus 11%, population attraction plus 120%, high-grade attraction plus 120%, subsidiary village limit. 4 800 owned villages: Logue Village, Jean Village, Dorn Village, Li Village, Wolf Village, Tiger Village. Zhao Fu finished looking at Qin City's attributes. Qin City had already leveled up to a great city. After that, it would be a great city. As such, Zhao Fu needed to satisfy the leveling requirements as soon as possible. That way, he would only need experience to level up. Qin was collecting information about all the small cities and towns. Once he found them, he would take action immediately. Boom! Just as Zhao Fu was about to leave the hall, a massive explosion sounded out as a massive gale rushed towards Qin City. Countless trees violently swayed as if they would be uprooted at any moment, and boulders were blown into the sky like gravel. Qin City was also affected, and the sky was filled with dust. Seeing this, Zhao Fu's pupils constricted as he looked towards Holy Light City and asked, "Just what is going on?" Roar! A massive dragon's roar sounded out, and Zhao Fu could tell that it wasn't a divine dragon's roar, but a Western dragon's roar. Eastern divine dragons' roars were more vigorous and forceful, while Western dragons' roars were more like roars. Just as Zhao Fu was feeling quite confused, a hooded assassin came before Zhao Fu and reported, "Your Majesty, there's an emergency. There's an emergency, and a wind dragon is currently attacking Holy Light City." Hearing this, Zhao Fu understood and immediately headed towards Holy Light City. As soon as he entered Holy Light City, a wild gust of wind blew against his face, making him feel quite painful. Zhao Fu unleashed his king's domain to defend against the wind. By now, Zhao Fu had a clear view of Holy Light City's current situation. Many houses had been blown over, and all sorts of rocks and were flying everywhere. The residents obediently hid under buildings, and countless players ran to another system main city to avoid the disaster. The scene was incredibly chaotic. In the sky, there was a massive wind dragon that had a wingspan of 1,000 meters. Its body was covered with azure dragon scales, and it had a lizard-like head and two long horns. Its body gave off a powerful wind attribute energy. This wasn't an ordinary wind dragon, but a boss of a region. Zhao Fu recognized the boss of the Forest of Horrors region. It was a six-eyed flood dragon. As such, this wind dragon was definitely a boss of another region. Why would a boss of another region come to the Forest of Horrors to attack Holy Light City? Zhao Fu raised his head and looked at the wind dragon lord in the sky. It furiously flapped its wings, sending out massive wind blades. Fighting against the wind dragon lord was a young woman in white. She was most likely Holy Light City's city lord. "Give me back my child, you thief. Otherwise, I'll destroy your city in my fury," the wind dragon lord suddenly said in a mature woman's voice. Zhao Fu immediately realized that a long time ago, Holy Light City had auctioned off a wind dragon egg. That was most likely the wind dragon lord's egg. No wonder they had taken out the wind dragon egg to sell. They knew that the wind dragon lord would come to them sooner or later. Even a system main city would find it difficult to defend against a lord-class creature, let alone a system main city. In the sky, the young woman in white hesitated. Holy Light City had spent a large amount of money to obtain the wind dragon egg, and she had never thought that such a thing would happen. However, looking at the destruction caused by the wind dragon lord, the young woman in white lightly sighed and replied, "I can give you the dragon egg, but please stop." Hearing the young woman in white's words, the wind dragon lord stopped attacking and looked at the young woman with its eyes. "All right, give me back my child." Seeing that the wind dragon lord had stopped, the young woman in white let out a sigh of relief. She took out an azure dragon egg from her spatial bag and tossed it towards the wind dragon lord. Under the protection of the young woman's power, the dragon egg flew towards the wind dragon lord. Chapter 508. Just as Zhao Fu was considering whether or not to act, the dragon egg was covered by a ray of azure light and disappeared. It turned out that the wind dragon lord was wearing a large spatial ring on one of its claws. After the wind dragon lord accepted the dragon egg, the white-clothed woman and Zhao Fu both thought that the matter would end peacefully. However, the wind dragon lord once again spread its wings, bringing with it a gale. "Give me back my child, but what about the matter of you stealing my child? I want 5 million gold coins, or else I won't let you off so easily." The wind dragon lord's voice once again sounded out, filled with savagery and domineeringness. Actually, both the eastern and western dragons loved to collect treasures. However, the western dragons were even more greedy and would collect anything of value. They would not let go of money either. They especially had a soft spot for shiny gold. Even though she didn't know who had stolen her egg, it was in this city. As such, she had to take revenge on this city, or else she wouldn't be able to resolve her hatred. In order to find this egg, she had spent so much time and effort. So how could she possibly come to an agreement so easily? Even if Holy Light City handed over all of its valuables, the wind dragon would still make a move and wreak havoc on Holy Light City before stopping. This caused the white-clothed woman's expression to fall. How could she have so many gold coins? At most, she only had around 1 million gold coins on her. However, for the sake of Holy Light City's safety, the white-clothed woman took a step back and said, "I only have around 1 million gold coins. I can give it all to you, but this matter must end here." By now, the white-clothed woman's attitude became firm. She was afraid that the wind dragon lord would continue to ask for more, so giving it all of her money was already the greatest concession she could make. However, the wind dragon lord didn't appreciate her kindness. Now that she had obtained the dragon egg, she could act as she pleased. It gave off a massive gale and said in an unnegotiable tone, "It's fine if you don't have any money, but give me all of your valuables." "Absolutely not." The white-clothed woman immediately refused. Hearing the white-clothed woman's refusal, the wind dragon lord directly attacked. It opened its mouth and spat out a massive pillar of wind towards the white-clothed woman, forcing her to retaliate. The battle between the two began. Massive explosions sounded out in the sky as wild gales and sword lights flew everywhere, easily cutting out ravines in the ground. Terrifying energy ripples caused the heavens and earth to dim, and countless creatures fled in terror. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he returned to Qin City and immediately gathered his forces. Right now, Holy Light City was the best place to attack. Before, Zhao Fu wanted to destroy the three system main cities together, but he was worried that the players would resist. After all, if the three system main cities were destroyed, they would have nowhere to go. Even if they were afraid of him, they would still resist. Moreover, Zhao Fu was worried that the three system main cities had allied together, and if Zhao Fu made a move against any one of them, they would all send soldiers. This meant that Qin City would have to face at least 300,000 Stage 1 soldiers. Even though Qin City had 400,000 soldiers, they would not have a big advantage against 300,000 Stage 1 soldiers. As such, Zhao Fu did not want to make a move against the Forest of Horrors too early. However, things were different now. With the Wind Dragon Lord, Qin City would be able to quickly take down Holy Light City and set up an isolation barrier. Even if they rushed over, it would be too late. Another factor was that most of the players had run to other regions to seek refuge, and without these opportunists, Qin City would have a better chance of taking down Holy Light City. If they could take down Holy Light City, the remaining two system main cities would be much easier to deal with. Under Zhao Fu's orders, Qin City's soldiers quickly finished their preparations. In order to be safe and to quickly take down Holy Light City, Zhao Fu also brought 150,000 skeletons and 30,000 skeleton mages. In total, they had 600,000 soldiers and all of their generals, and they majestically marched towards Holy Light City. The battle at Holy Light City became even more intense. The Wind Dragon Lord roared as its body spun in the air, causing a massive vortex to form. Following this, countless black clouds gathered, forming a massive tornado. Rumble, the tornado started to spin, causing massive sounds to ring out. Cracks appeared on the ground, and everything in the surroundings, whether it was boulders or trees, was sucked into the tornado. Everything within 10,000 kilometers was affected, and it looked as if it was going to destroy the heavens and the earth. Seeing this, the white-clothed woman's expression became serious, and she exploded out with all of her City Lord Seal's power. A white pillar of light shot into the sky, and the white-clothed woman within the pillar of light seemed to become incredibly holy. Immediately, a massive white halo appeared in the sky, giving off a bright white light that dyed the entire sky white. White feathers floated down from the sky, and it was as if the heavens were singing. A pair of white wings slowly spread out from the white-clothed woman's back. Immediately, the white-clothed woman gave off a shocking holy light energy, and she slowly raised her white sword. The massive tornado gave off world-destroying power, and it was about to reach the white-clothed woman. The terrifying might it gave off could cause anyone's heart to tremble. However, the white-clothed woman's expression did not change in the face of this massive tornado, and she only heavily slashed down with her sword. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a white sword light slashed out, seeming to split the heavens and the earth. The blinding white sword light caused the entire world to turn white. Bang! The white sword light and the tornado collided, resulting in a massive explosion. The white sword light was slightly stronger, and it destroyed the tornado, causing it to explode into countless gusts of wind. However, at that moment, the Wind Dragon Lord within the tornado suddenly attacked. It whipped its tail and sent the white-clothed woman flying. The Wind Dragon Lord continued to chase after the white-clothed woman, but the white-clothed woman's gaze became cold. She pointed with her sword, and a white sword light suddenly shot out, easily slashing apart the Wind Dragon Lord's body. Blood sprayed everywhere, and the Wind Dragon Lord howled before retreating into the sky. The two of them once again faced off, and the Wind Dragon Lord felt quite surprised that this white-clothed woman was so powerful. The white-clothed woman looked at the Wind Dragon seriously, not daring to relax at all. Rumble! Suddenly, a massive black tide, giving off an incredibly terrifying aura, flooded over. This caused the two people's expressions to fall, and they looked towards the black tide. Chapter 509. The Wind Dragon Lord loudly laughed as she agreed. Right now, she and the woman in white were evenly matched, and if she could obtain this human support to destroy this city, that would be for the best. After all of the valuable things in this city would belong to her, so she was naturally quite happy. Not only would she be able to take revenge on this city, but she would also be able to obtain a large amount of wealth. How could she refuse such a thing? However, this human said that he wanted a city creation stone, which was a very precious treasure, especially for a main city like this. The Wind Dragon Lord thought about it and decided to pretend to cooperate with Zhao Fu before taking the city creation stone. That way, all of the good things would belong to her. Human, as long as you help me, I'll definitely give you massive benefits. The Wind Dragon Lord inwardly laughed as she pretended to be serious and trustworthy. Zhao Fu agreed, but he had other plans. Even though he didn't know what the Wind Dragon Lord was thinking, Zhao Fu didn't plan on letting the Wind Dragon Lord off. Right now, only Zhao Fu had revealed himself, and the other 9 city lords were hiding nearby. When the Wind Dragon Lord and the woman in white were both heavily injured, they would attack together and take them down. Killing a Wind Dragon Lord like this would most likely result in good rewards. As for the woman in white, it seemed that she wouldn't be able to subdue her. Facing this scene, the woman in white's expression didn't change much, and she only looked at Zhao Fu. This person in front of her was the dynasty legatee that they had feared for a long time, and she had finally seen him in person. Facing the woman in white's gaze, Zhao Fu felt a bit guilty. After all, from the moment he had entered the Heaven-Awakened world, Qin had spent most of its time developing in Holy Light City. Now that he was going to personally destroy it, he couldn't help but feel a bit emotional. However, Zhao Fu quickly made up his mind and said, "I'm sorry." The woman in white didn't seem angry at all, as she had long since known that this day would come. Zhao Fu gave the order to attack the city, and the Wind Dragon Lord planned to stall the woman in white to make it easier for Zhao Fu to attack the city. As Qin made his move, the other 2 system main cities also received news of this and quickly started to move. Not only did they gather all of their forces, but they also gave out a large number of quests. Many people didn't know what to do. When they saw the rich rewards, they joined in. They didn't know that they were attacking Qin. As for Qin being in the Forest of Horrors, many factions had heard from Su Yin, so they had many spies in the Forest of Horrors. After all, only Qin dared to attack a system main city. In order to attract more people to join, they gave out large amounts of rewards, and they said that even if they died and returned to the real world, they would receive all sorts of rewards. They would also be protected, and they would not have to worry about anything in the future. Many people didn't know why, but with so many benefits, they couldn't help but join. Especially in the real world, if they could be protected, they wouldn't have to worry about money every day. They wouldn't have to worry about food or clothing, and they wouldn't have to worry about offending anyone. This was the most attractive thing. Most ordinary people chose to join, while the large factions were much more astute. They understood that there was no such thing as a free lunch, and they felt that there was definitely something hidden. The spies directly explained the situation in detail, telling them that Qin was in the Forest of Horrors. The countless factions were completely dumbfounded. They had never thought that the terrifying Qin would be here, and they had slept next to a tiger for so long. Following this, the spies started to threaten them, telling them to think about how great Qin was treating factions like them and large families. This made the Forest of Horrors factions feel quite worried, and they all looked quite terrified. Now, Qin had chosen to kill all of the factions. Following this, the spies threw out all sorts of benefits, promising that the various dynasty legatees would protect them. They didn't want to destroy Qin and only wanted to heavily wound Qin. Moreover, the spies told them about the 3 system main cities allying together, causing countless factions to join in. The Zhou family, Jiang family, governmental faction, Holy Light Group, Soldier Alliance, all of the factions that Zhao Fu was familiar with were forced to join in. After all, it was because of Qin that they had to unite, or else they would die. Even though they knew the consequences of doing this, even if they didn't do this, they would still suffer the same fate. At the very least, if they chose the second option, they would still be protected by the various dynasty legatees. Most of the ordinary people who didn't know the truth joined in, and these factions were also enticed to join. Not only did they send players, but they also sent indigenous residents. Almost all of the player factions in the three system main cities came out. The system main cities not only sent 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers, but also tens of thousands of strong residents. The only faction that didn't move was Heaven's Choice. After all, Heaven's Choice had been established by Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu didn't hide his identity. After Zhao Fu became the proxy family leader of the Ying family, Heaven's Choice was naturally revered by countless people, but now it was met with boundless hostility. This was because Qin was in the Forest of Horrors, and facing Qin's greatest threat, no matter how much they tried to curry favor with him, their attitudes weren't good. Heaven's Choice was established by Zhao Fu, so it was definitely related to Qin. As such, it was naturally met with hostility by countless people. After hearing about this, the spies that Qin had left in the system main cities were incredibly shocked. This meant that His Majesty would have to face a pincer attack from three sides, and there were nearly 4 million enemies, including 300,000 Stage 1 soldiers. Qin's true strength was 450,000, so if he faced a pincer attack from 4 million enemies, it was quite possible that Qin would lose. What was even more shocking was that the three system main cities had already found a way to destroy isolation barriers, and they'd already started to send people to Holy Light City. Qin would definitely be caught off guard, and if he was surrounded by 4 million enemies, Qin would definitely lose. The three system main cities had sensed Great Qin's existence a long time ago, and they knew that it was extraordinarily powerful. This was evident from the abnormal signs that it gave off. As such, the three system main cities had been preparing this entire time. While Qin had been developing for a long time, they had also been preparing for a long time. They had all sorts of methods to deal with Qin. Great Qin had used isolation barriers to lock down regions, and if they suddenly attacked a system main city, they would definitely be caught off guard. However, the Forest of Horrors three system main cities had been preparing for a long time, so they naturally had ways to break through isolation barriers. Great Qin's system main cities had been preparing for a long time, so they naturally had ways to break through isolation barriers. Qin's spies hurriedly sent this news to Zhao Fu. However, although they couldn't send all their people to hold back Qin, this was a good opportunity to severely injure Qin. They couldn't miss this opportunity. Since the other party had come to attack Holy Light City, it was clear that there was no way for them to coexist. They could only fight. The white-clothed girl immediately made a decision. She sent out a large number of Stage 1 soldiers to rush out of Holy Light City and chase after Qin. They didn't want to fight head-on, but rather to stall Qin's soldiers. Seeing the countless system main city soldiers chasing after him, Zhao Fu didn't hesitate to leave behind 150,000 skeletons as cannon fodder to stop the large number of system main city soldiers. The system main city soldiers and the countless skeletons immediately started a fight, while Qin's army continued to run away. Seeing this, the white-clothed girl prepared to give chase and personally attack. However, when she suddenly met Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes, a chill rose up within her. She instinctively felt a sense of danger, causing her to stop. Zhao Fu looked away. If the white-clothed girl chased after him, Zhao Fu and the other city lords would attack together. Right now, their main goal was to escape. However, if the white-clothed girl insisted on stopping them, Zhao Fu could only take the risk and stay behind to kill her. In the distance, the two teleportation channels continuously flashed as large groups of people were teleported over. Under the leadership of the various large factions, they rushed towards Qin's army. Zhao Fu received a report from his intelligence officer and finally understood what was going on. He coldly harumphed. As expected, these ordinary players and factions were Qin's greatest obstacle. Seeing that the other two sides had arrived, the white-clothed girl sent out all of her people to meet up with the other two sides. They stopped a large number of Stage 1 skeletons, causing a few casualties to the system main city soldiers, but they were quickly destroyed. After all, skeletons relied on numbers to win, and because they were summoned by skeleton mages, they were not as strong as the disaster cavalrymen, so they were destined to lose. However, those skeletons could be summoned at any time, so it wouldn't be a big deal if they all died. Now, Qin had escaped from the pincer attack from 3 sides, but the other side was still charging at him. The tide of 4 million people was incredibly terrifying, and they gave off a heaven-shaking aura. Zhao Fu stood in the air with a trace of anger on his face, and his blood-red eyes coldly looked at the incoming tide of people. This was the first time Qin had run away in such a wretched manner. However, with Qin's 400,000 or so soldiers, it would be very difficult for him to stop 4 million enemies. This was not just because of the numbers, but because the other side had 300,000 Stage 1 soldiers. If Qin stayed, there would be no benefit to him at all, and the worst outcome would be that he would be completely wiped out. Do you really dare to become enemies with Qin? Zhao Fu exploded out with all of his power, whether it was his City Lord seal, nation armament, or clan armament. A heaven-toppling aura rushed into the sky, causing the heavens and earth to dim. The clouds violently roiled as a wild gale blew. Trees madly swayed, and sand and pebbles were blown into the air. It was as if the apocalypse had descended. A terrifying aura covered everyone, and Zhao Fu's cold voice pierced into everyone's ears like an icy knife, causing everyone's bodies to tremble and stop moving. The massive tide of people also stopped moving. What? It's Qin at the front? Only then did the countless ordinary people come back to their senses. Their expressions fell, and they immediately felt fear and wanted to run. However, countless people's voices sounded out from within the tide of people. Everyone, don't be afraid. Whether it's in the Heaven Awakened world or the real world, you'll receive massive rewards. Even if you die, you won't have to be afraid. At the same time, you'll be protected by the various factions. Also, there's no need to be afraid of Great Qin. They can only bring a few people into the Heaven Awakened world at most, while we have so many people. Even if they catch you, if you commit suicide, their methods won't work on you. Zhao Fu looked at Great Qin and said, Great Qin, don't worry. Qin plans to destroy the Forest of Horror's 3 system main cities. If you don't have them, where can you go? Chapter 511. Hearing those people's words, everyone felt a wave of hot-bloodedness rise up in their hearts. Qin was indeed running away, and facing them, Qin was actually afraid and choosing to run, thinking about how they would receive great rewards regardless of whether they lived or died. The tide of people once again started to surge, and it was even more ferocious than before. That's right, there's nothing to be afraid of. Everyone, continue charging and kill all of Qin's people. They're not invincible, and they're afraid now. Seeing the tide of people charging towards them, Zhao Fu felt quite furious. He drew the sky demon sword and raised it as he roared, Godly Hell's Gates. This time, Zhao Fu used all of his power, including his nation armament and clan armament. He sent massive amounts of power into the sky demon sword, causing it to give off a shocking demonic light. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as a black pillar of light shot into the sky, and a massive black hole expanded until it was 10,000 meters wide. Countless traces of demonic chi flowed out, and terrifying howls sounded out as countless demons flooded out. This time, it was not just the little demons, but also the 2-meter-tall, muscular great demons, as well as ferocious-looking fallen demons that gave off flames. There were hundreds of thousands of them, and they gave off incredibly ferocious sounds as they charged towards the massive ocean of people. The 2 waves ferociously clashed, and the countless demons charged forwards and slashed out with their claws, tearing 4 or 5 players apart. Blood flew everywhere, and the little demons stabbed out with their pitchforks, piercing through the chests of the players. However, the players showed no fear at all and swarmed up, stabbing their weapons into the demons' bodies. Countless demons howled as their bodies collapsed and turned into traces of demonic chi. The countless demons formed a small wave and rushed towards the ocean of people, causing the ocean of people to pause for a moment before being destroyed. However, Qin soldiers had been quite far away from them, and adding on the obstruction from Zhao Fu and the countless demons, the countless Qin soldiers had already used teleportation channels to return to Qin City. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and disappeared into the sky. Countless people looked into the distance. Qin soldiers, who had almost run away, did not chase after them. Instead, they stood where they were and cheered happily. All of them looked incredibly excited. This was the first time someone had defeated Great Qin and forced them to flee. This was something that had never happened before, and with how ferocious and terrifying Great Qin was, they had never thought that they would be able to do such a thing. Today, they would definitely become famous because they had defeated the arrogant Qin. They would also be admired by everyone in the world. How could they not be happy and excited? Let me ask you, who can do this now? Countless spies here couldn't help but laugh. They didn't expect this at all. They thought that Qin still had some tricks up his sleeves. This time, they were determined to die, hoping to at least severely injure Qin. They didn't expect that Qin would be forced to escape. Although Qin didn't lose much combat power, it was a heavy blow to Qin's reputation. Countless people were in high spirits, celebrating this victory with the attitude of a victor. The 3 city lords standing in the air looked slightly worried. They had allowed Great Qin to escape this time, but they would not have such a good opportunity next time, and they might have to face Great Qin's berserk revenge again. This time, Qin escaped without any mishap, but his reputation fell to the bottom. This matter quickly spread to the real world. When the whole world heard the news, it was violently shocked. Qin lost. He chose to flee in embarrassment in front of 4 million people. Countless people couldn't help but laugh. Their resentment, which had been suppressed by Qin, had dissipated a lot. This showed that Qin was not invincible at all, and they still had a chance to defeat Qin. Even though no faction dared to resist the attacks of 4 million people, Qin was different. After all, in countless people's hearts, Qin was a godly existence. However, they had never thought that he would fall from his godly position. This meant that Qin no longer had any powerful tricks up his sleeves. Qin could be defeated, and they didn't have to worry or be afraid anymore. After all, they could also destroy Qin. Many factions' gloomy hearts started to rise again. The happiest ones were the dynasty legatees, as they had been the ones in charge of this matter. As a dynasty's legatee, it was impossible for them to reconcile with each other. As such, they had to do everything they could to destroy Qin or limit Qin's development. However, they had never expected that they would be able to force Qin to retreat. This was the first time they had defeated Qin, and after losing so many times, they had lost all confidence. As such, this was even more surprising. They quickly fulfilled their promise and gave everyone in the Forest of Horrors rewards. This was a necessary reward, or else they wouldn't be able to use them to attack Qin in the future. This caused the entire Forest of Horrors to be immersed in cheers and celebrations. This matter caused Qin's reputation to plummet. After all, as long as they hadn't failed once, they wouldn't be afraid of Qin anymore. Their fear of Qin also disappeared because of this matter. Many people had also vented their anger, and their moods became much better. The foreign factions also let out sighs of relief. Qin had been a great threat to them, and now that Qin had lost, they were happy to see this. In actuality, Qin hadn't lost this time, because he had only retreated strategically. He hadn't lost much of his forces, which was quite common on the battlefield. However, in terms of momentum, Qin had lost, and this was something that the whole world was happy to see. Most of the people who had been surrounding the Ying family dispersed, and they didn't want Qin's writs and holy daughter writs anymore. Only a small portion of people stayed. This portion of people thought to themselves that this was a good opportunity. Qin had only retreated, and he was already incredibly powerful. Now that most of the people had left, they would be even more loyal if they stayed. Perhaps they would be able to receive Qin's favor and obtain the Qin writs that they had been dreaming of. The families that had sent their women to the Ying family also decided to support Qin. After all, as a famous family, they couldn't afford to lose face by bringing back their women. Moreover, they believed that Qin was hiding some terrifying trump card, but he hadn't used it yet. They remembered how Qin had instantly killed 100 million players and caused a massive catastrophe. They were betting on Qin's potential. If Qin continued to win, those who continued to support him would receive massive benefits, and they would officially join Qin's faction. Chapter 512. Luckily, the Ying family had not accepted many women, only 4 of them. Otherwise, many large families would have come to ask for them. After all, not everyone would choose to trust Qin and stand on Qin's side against the other factions. The Ying family paid great attention to this matter. After going to Zhao Fu's villa and hearing that he had not woken up yet, they did not continue to disturb him, as they knew that Qin's situation was not good. As such, they ordered the bodyguards to immediately tell them if Zhao Fu woke up. After hearing about this, the Ying family's women did not change much. Before, Lu Rian and Pan Yuling had a trace of hope that the family would allow them to return. However, after hearing about the family's attitude, they completely gave up. From that moment onwards, they decided that they belonged to the Ying family and Qin's legatee. Feng Xiyu was quite concerned and went everywhere to ask about Qin, and she even went to Zhao Fu's villa to ask about legatee Qin's situation. She had long since considered herself to be legatee Qin's woman, but she was stopped by the bodyguards, so she could only give up. Li Muqing was the most unaffected, and he continued to stay with the Ying family. He would sometimes read books or draw, and he would often talk to Lu Ruyan about his zither skills. It was as if he had never heard about this matter. Back in the Forest of Horrors, Qin's shops in the 3 system main cities had all been sealed. Since they had chosen a fight, the system main cities would not show mercy. Luckily, Qin's people had already retreated, so there were no casualties. However, Heaven's Choice was quite pitiful. It was surrounded by countless players. Most people chose to leave Heaven's Choice, and a small portion of people resisted, but they were all killed. It could be said that all of Qin's factions in the Forest of Horrors had been destroyed, and none of the factions related to Heaven's Choice had escaped. However, even though Heaven's Choice had been destroyed, its core members had long since been sent to the Ying family. They had not lost any of their core members, but Heaven's Choice would no longer exist. This was because after dying, they would be randomly teleported into the Heaven Awakened world, so it was impossible for the core members to be together. As such, it was impossible for Heaven's Choice to reappear. Unless Zhao Fu re-established Heaven's Choice after the regions were connected, Heaven's Choice would be destroyed. Apart from the fact that all of Qin's factions in the system main cities had been destroyed, the 3 city lords once again gave out quests to search in a certain direction in order to find where Qin was. The 3 city lords judged a general direction based on the vision caused by Qin City before, but they could not accurately judge where it was, so they hoped to find the location of Qin City through a carpet search. Now that all the players were willing to listen to them, it was a great opportunity. If they could find Qin, they'd better get rid of him as soon as possible. They couldn't let a tiger grow in his bosom. They had to get rid of Qin before they could be at ease. In actuality, the players did not listen to them, but the dynasty legatees. They had just received bountiful rewards from the dynasty legatees, making them incredibly happy. Naturally, they were willing to listen to the dynasty legatees, and if the 3 system main cities wanted to destroy Qin, the dynasty legatees would definitely support them. If anyone could find where Qin was, the rewards were incredibly tempting. The 3 system main cities would give out 300,000 gold coins. The dynasty legatees would give out 1 billion gold coins, and they would be able to join any dynasty legatee and receive their protection. The massive rewards caused many people to madly search for him. Damn it, Zhao Fu was infuriated. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, slamming them against the table beside him, resulting in a massive sound. Everyone in the hall lowered their heads, not daring to make a single sound, causing the atmosphere in the hall to be quite oppressive. After retreating from Qin, Zhao Fu had gathered all of his generals, and after hearing the news, Zhao Fu felt incredibly furious. These ordinary people truly deserved to die. They were always the greatest threat to Qin. Zhao Fu had never thought about killing all of the ordinary people, and he only wanted to kill those who opposed him. However, now, Zhao Fu wanted to kill all of them. He couldn't allow them to continuously threaten Qin. Zhao Fu's eyes continuously gave off a cold light, and he wanted to cause another catastrophe. However, this was not quite possible. He had promised the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon that he wouldn't do anything that could destroy the Heaven Awakened world. Moreover, even if he attacked again, the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon would definitely stop him, and Qin didn't have the power to resist the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon. Apart from the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon, the other 3 guardian beasts would also act. Just the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon was already incredibly powerful, let alone the other 3. Zhao Fu still felt that Qin was too weak, too petty, and too pitiful. It was as if he could be destroyed by anyone at any time, and he wouldn't be able to resist at all. Zhao Fu didn't want to feel that sort of powerlessness. He could only continue to become stronger and stronger, abandoning everything else to become stronger. At that moment, Zhao Fu's delicate and handsome face became somewhat savage, and his eyes became bloodshot. He looked incredibly insane, and anyone who looked at him would tremble. Within the boundless darkness, the massive devilish stars suddenly gave off an intense blood-red light, and an obscure, yet dangerous, destructive power gradually formed. The Chaos Imperial Star seemed to be unrestricted by the laws of the world, and it was about to descend into the mortal world. What was even more shocking was that a large amount of black aura suddenly rose up from Zhao Fu's body. This black aura contained both Zhao Fu's king's power and Zhao Fu's king's fate. However, at that moment, it started to turn blood red. Within the depths of Zhao Fu's soul, the demon divinity gradually released its true power, causing Zhao Fu's soul to change. A soul-piercing coldness spread out, causing everyone in the hall to feel as if they had fallen into a bottomless abyss. Their expressions fell, and they looked up at Zhao Fu. Immediately, they were shocked to find that Zhao Fu's majesty was becoming more and more inhuman. 2 fangs grew out of his mouth, and his ears became sharper. His black hair became blood red, and his noble and domineering aura became one of pure bloodlust. Standing next to Zhao Fu, Shinru walked up with a serious expression and stretched out her hand. Her palm gave off a 5-colored light as she lightly patted Zhao Fu's back and said, "Your Majesty, you're the king of Qin. You're great Qin's emperor. You can't be controlled by other powers." Immediately, Zhao Fu felt as if he had woken up from a dream, and he looked around in confusion before returning to his original appearance. This caused everyone in the hall to let out a sigh of relief, and they gratefully looked at Shinru. If it wasn't for her, no one would have dared to interrupt Zhao Fu. No matter what Zhao Fu became, they would still follow his orders no matter what. Shinru smiled and slightly lowered her head, returning the greeting before returning to Zhao Fu's side. "Your Majesty, how will Qin deal with the countless players searching for him?" Bai Qi asked, trying to divert Zhao Fu's attention. Chapter 513. Hearing Bai Qi's words, Zhao Fu thought for a moment before replying, "Send out all of Qin's assassins to hunt them down. The forest is their home ground. However, don't wait until they step into Qin's territory. Take the initiative and attack from different directions so that they won't be able to determine where Qin's territory is. Also, Bai Qi, I'll give you all of my soldiers and 1 million residents. You need to quickly set up a large number of traps around Qin's territory. Even though Qin's population is 8 million, and those people won't be able to take down Qin City, the other villages will be in even more danger. We need to prevent people from accidentally entering and set up traps to defend against a large number of enemies. Yes, sir, Bai Qi replied. Following this, Zhao Fu said, finally, tell Bai Shan to see if he can research something that can harm people in the real world. If the lives of ordinary people aren't truly threatened, they won't be afraid. Even though Qin had the reality tree, it could only produce 5 reality fruits per day. After 10 or so days, they had only obtained 50 or so reality fruits, which was not enough to threaten the real world. It would be best if they could research a large number of such things. Zhao Fu gave out a string of orders, and the various generals left the hall. In the end, only Zhao Fu and Xianru remained in the hall. Zhao Fu thought back to what had just happened and remembered that he had lost control of his body and soul. At that time, his consciousness had been a bit hazy. Zhao Fu looked at Xianru and asked seriously, "What just happened?" Xianru slightly lowered her head and replied seriously, "This is a side effect of your majesty fusing with the demon god's divinity and activating the chaos imperial star. If your majesty can stay true to yourself, nothing will happen. However, they will guide your majesty into an unknown evolution. Even though I'm not sure what your evolution will be with the demon god's divinity, the Myrtle imperial star, and the chaos demon star, your majesty will definitely become a forbidden existence." Xianru's tone became more serious as she said, "Your majesty, you'd better pay more attention to this matter and control your emotions. Actually, if your highness can get close to beauties, especially those women that you've made concubines, their phoenix chi will not only be good for your highness's body, but can also purify your highness's fate and dispel the demon divinity and chaos demon star's evil energy. Your highness, if you can't bear to do anything to them, what about Lu Mei, Daisy, Lai Qinxian, and Lu Subai? There's also Asani, who's not bad. However, I'm more optimistic about Ba Qing and Tuoba Qing. Both of them have massive amounts of phoenix chi. Ba Qing's phoenix chi can rival the phoenix chi of a few women, and Tuoba Qing has even more phoenix chi than Ba Qing. However, there seems to be some sort of power interfering with it, so I can't see it clearly. Tuoba Qing's background is not simple, and your majesty, I recommend her the most. Of course, if your majesty can come with her, that would be for the best. If your majesty is unable to do so, I can help you refine a special medicinal pill from the school of Yin Yang. Cough, cough. When he heard Xianru say that she wanted to refine a special medicinal pill, Zhao Fu choked on his saliva and coughed a few times. Is there something wrong? Isn't it normal for ministers to tell their king to be less concerned about politics and women? Why is it that they're telling me to be more interested in women? In response to Xianru's words, Zhao Fu could only reply, "I'll take note of this." Seeing this, Xianru inwardly sighed and did not say anything else. Just as the atmosphere was about to calm down, a flirtatious voice suddenly sounded out, "Master, hurry up and do it. I've been waiting day and night, and I've been drooling." This shameless voice caused both Zhao Fu and Xianru's faces to go red. The only person who could say such a thing was the evil dragon, Long Xiao Xiao. Zhao Fu said helplessly, "Didn't I tell you not to talk too much? Look at how quiet the other 3 swords are." However, Long Xiao Xiao harumphed, "I don't have any needs, but master, I do. I've been thinking about master in all sorts of positions every day." Hearing these shameless words, the other 3 swords couldn't help but speak up. The sky demon cried out, "Perverted dragon, can't you be a bit more honest? What are you thinking about all day?" Zhao Fu nodded, expressing that he agreed with the sky demon's words. This made Long Xiao Xiao feel quite wronged, and she unhappily cried out. Xianru couldn't help but lightly laugh. "Your Majesty, this sword's grade is quite high, and it needs to be taken care of." Hearing that someone was on her side, Long Xiao Xiao felt quite happy and was about to say something. Just as she was about to say something, Zhao Fu hurriedly cut her off, telling her to stop here. Otherwise, Zhao Fu really wouldn't be able to take it anymore. Hearing that someone was on her side, Long Xiao Xiao felt quite happy. Elsewhere, Qin's 30,000 assassins obeyed Zhao Fu's orders, and under the leadership of the 12 assassins, they started to move. With the massive rewards, countless people came to the Forest of Horrors with the hopes of finding treasures. Some people came by themselves, because once they found where Qin was, the rewards would be theirs alone. Some people thought about their own safety, as there were not only ferocious beasts but also all sorts of outlanders. As such, they formed teams of 10 or so people to search. Many people started to search like this, and if they continued to search like this, Qin would be found sooner or later. The Forest of Horrors was filled with all sorts of lush and strange-looking trees. Their tall canopies blocked out the sunlight, making it quite dark and making it difficult to see. Moreover, there were many obstacles in the terrain, making it difficult to walk. Most combat professions would feel uncomfortable in the Forest of Horrors because their movements would be restricted, making it difficult for them to move. However, for thieves and assassins, the Forest of Horrors was like home turf. They could use their agile movement techniques to move about without making a sound. Qin's 30,000 assassins started to move, which was quite terrifying. In the Forest of Horrors, having more people was not an advantage. Of course, if it was a flat terrain, Zhao Fu would not dare to send out assassins, because they would be killed in just a short while. Currently, most people had not sensed the danger yet. On one hand, they did not know what method Qin had. On the other hand, they were still immersed in the joy of victory. They had defeated Qin, and the internet was going viral about how domineering they had been, scaring Qin so much that he had pissed his pants and run away. Now that they had more people, they were not afraid of anything and swaggered around. Not only were they not on guard, but they also did not seem to place Qin in their eyes at all, believing that they would win again. Chapter 514. There was a group of 7 people, and a big man was leading the way as he said happily, "It would be great if we could find Qin's location. We wouldn't have to worry about anything for the rest of our lives. The real world is becoming more and more chaotic, and if we have the protection of those big families, we won't have to worry about our safety in the future." Another young man said happily, "I think so too. If we can find Qin's location, we won't have to worry about anything. We'll have anything we want." Suddenly, an ordinary-looking woman said worriedly, "Before, Qin retreated, but now that we're searching for him without any fear, will Qin retaliate?" "Humph." A ruffian young man coldly harumphed and said in a mocking tone, "Right now, Qin is just a fart. What's there to be afraid of? When he sees us, he'll run away like a dog." "That's right. There's nothing to be afraid of about Qin anymore. This time, we've sent out all of our players. Facing so many of us, Qin must be hiding in fear, so you don't have to worry about anything," a middle-aged woman said as she smiled. Hearing this, the ordinary-looking woman didn't say anything else. She felt that it was right. With so many people searching for Qin's location, there was nothing to be afraid of. Puff! Suddenly, a soft sound sounded out as a warm liquid splashed onto the woman's face. The woman, who had been thinking with her head lowered, suddenly felt quite startled. She wiped her face with her hand and found that it was blood. The woman was greatly startled, and she looked up to find that the other 6 people's throats had been slit, and they were all lying on the ground, dead. "What's going on?" Before the woman could understand what was going on, a hooded figure appeared behind her and covered her mouth as a cold voice sounded out. "Qin isn't someone that you ants can fight against." After speaking, the other hand, holding a dagger, mercilessly slit her neck, causing blood to spurt out. The woman felt a sharp pain in her throat, and she choked a few times before dying. After killing the 7 people, the hooded figures appeared and dragged the corpses into the bushes. After covering them up, they leaped onto a tree and disappeared. This was only the players at the front of the army. The people at the back didn't know what was going on because each team was relatively far away from each other. If they were too close, once they discovered Qin's location, the others would also know. Because of this, it was more convenient for Qin's assassins to take action. After Qin's assassins killed 7 people, they set their sights on a 6-man team. For a small team like this, Qin's assassins would directly attack. Finding the right time, he suddenly rushed out from a hidden place. Before the 6 people could react, He slit their throats or pierced their hearts. The team of 6 was quickly killed. Once again, he dragged the corpses into the bushes and hid them. This was mainly to avoid alerting the other players. If they saw the corpses, they would definitely be careful. This way, it would be difficult for Qin's assassin to succeed. The people in front of player Qin were constantly being killed by Qin's assassins. The people in the back didn't notice the danger and continued to move forward. It was unknown how many people Qin's assassins had killed, but the sky gradually darkened. There were no stars or moon tonight, and it was quite dim. At the same time, it was more suitable for them to act. The players lit bonfires without any wariness, revealing their locations and making it easier for Qin's assassins to find them. At night, most players started to rest, and some started to cultivate. A small portion of players chose to leave the Heaven Awakened world and stay in the real world for a while before entering the Heaven Awakened world. After all, there was a big-time difference between the Heaven Awakened world and the real world. After returning to the real world, the players wanted to go to the Heaven Awakened World Forum to see how people were praising them for defeating Qin. However, the Heaven Awakened World Forum had long since exploded. Fudge! Your elder was looking for Qin's location when I suddenly saw a black figure and was killed. Me too. I didn't even see anything before I was stabbed in the heart from behind. I didn't even see the enemy before I died. I felt so wronged. You guys too? Our entire team was suddenly killed by a few people who jumped out from the bushes. Those people were so strong and attacked so quickly that we didn't even have time to react before we all died. Looking at these posts, the countless forest of horrors felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over their heads. Their prideful smiles froze. How could so many people have died without them noticing? They were still in the wilderness, and if they continued to search for Qin's location, they would definitely be attacked. When they thought of that, countless people hurriedly returned to the Heaven Awakened world. Some people were quite lucky. After entering the Heaven Awakened world, they only saw some traces of blood and found their teammates' corpses in the bushes, allowing them to escape death. Some people were quite unlucky. As soon as they entered the Heaven Awakened world, they told everyone about what had happened and told them to hurry back. However, by then, they were surrounded by 10 or so hooded figures, and they quickly died. The player army at the front instantly suffered heavy casualties, but the players at the back quickly spread the news, scaring countless people into rushing back to the system main cities. Great Qin's assassins relentlessly chased after them. Since they had been discovered, they did not bother to hide themselves. Pained cries tore through the night sky, seeming incredibly horrifying in this dark night. This night was destined to be a night of slaughter. At dawn, the bright red sun slowly rose up from the mountains, and the orange-yellow sunlight shined down on the land. A new day had arrived. Countless players hurriedly ran back to the system main cities, breathing raggedly. Last night was simply too terrifying. A person suddenly appeared out of nowhere and started to madly kill people. Out of the 3 million or so players that had gone out, only 6 million or so returned. In other words, 400,000 people had died while searching for Qin's location. This figure was simply too shocking, causing countless players' faces to pale. They all put away their arrogant expressions. Only now did they understand how terrifying Qin was. Last time, Qin had only retreated, and it wasn't because he was weak. Only after fighting him head-on would they know how terrifying he was. In actuality, 400,000 people wasn't a lot. Zhao Fu had sent out 30,000 or so assassins from Qin, so he had only killed around 13 people. This was in one day, and the Forest of Horrors was their home ground. Adding on their powerful cultivation and equipment, killing 13 people in one day was a bit low. Chapter 5:15. Many forces had already expected this massacre. If 4 million people had come together, Qin would have considered the loss and retreated. But if ordinary people naively thought that Qin really had no power to resist, that would be really a big mistake. Once they were scattered, they would be hunted down by Qin one by one. With the strength of ordinary people, they would die in front of Qin. Now, they even want to go to the core area of Qin City. It would be strange if this place wasn't dangerous. A group of arrogant, ordinary people would definitely be killed when they stepped in. Over 400,000 players had died in a single day, greatly reducing the morale of the players on Qin's side. Their expressions darkened, and they no longer dared to oppose Qin Feng. However, 400,000 people did not die in vain. There were many people with special abilities in this world. They collected the locations of countless people who had died, and with the information provided by many players, they finally deduced the exact location of Qin's location. This was definitely a delightful piece of news. Many factions and dynasty legatees once again increased the rewards to motivate the players and raise their morale, telling Qin the correct direction. Let them gather their troops and attack Qin again. This time, even if they couldn't kill Qin, they could at least severely injure him and bring his strength down to the average level. In the face of massive benefits, countless players were once again tempted, and their low morale was once again boosted. This time, they were all together, and they were not scattered. Unity was strength, and now that they had found Great Qin's location, they just had to find it. After hearing about this, the three-system main cities all moved out. With the support of the three-system main cities, the countless players felt much more confident. Very soon, the army once again gathered, and 3 million or so people majestically headed towards Great Qin. Qin also got the news. Zhao Fu looked at Bai Qi and asked, "Is everything ready?" Bai Qi revealed a faint smile and gently nodded his head. Zhao Fu relaxed a little. He turned his eyes to Qin's soldiers, who were ready and in high morale, and shouted, "Let's go." All the soldiers of Qin's army marched in the direction of the army of players. The army of players marched forward excitedly and quickly stepped into Qin's territory. Immediately, they had received countless baptisms. If they were not careful, they would fall into a big hole and be pierced to death by sharp wooden spears. Some would be smashed to death by heavy objects falling from the sky. There were also places where countless bamboo spears would suddenly shoot out. All sorts of traps appeared one after another, causing many players to die, and the player army's momentum faltered. Looking at the countless traps that had caused 40,000 to 50,000 casualties, the three city lords frowned and ordered everyone to be careful. This place was already filled with isolation arrays. If it wasn't for the isolation arrays, they could have passed through the teleportation arrays and passed through the countless traps. The item that they had used to break through the isolation barrier had fused with the system main city's teleportation channel, so it could not be used here. However, Zhao Fu was also on guard against this, and he sent people to stand on high ground. Once someone came through the teleportation channel, even if he sent soldiers to surround and kill them, they would not be able to teleport too many people. After all, teleportation channels had a limit on the number of people that could teleport, so it was easy to intercept and kill them. The player army advanced with great difficulty, because there were simply too many of them. If they were not careful, they would fall into traps. As such, after passing through the traps, the player army had suffered roughly 100,000 casualties. This number was quite normal, as Zhao Fu had sent 45 million people to create such a large number of traps. This was the benefit of being on the defensive. The player army continued onwards and came to a large area of water that was a few kilometers wide. The water was a dirt yellow color and was quite murky. However, it was not very deep, being less than 30 centimeters deep. It was quite easy to pass through, and it did not seem to be dangerous at all. However, the three city lords and the leaders of the various factions had just suffered from the countless traps, so they did not dare to be careless. They had thought that it would be best to go around it, but they were surrounded by tall mountains, and with so many people climbing over, it would take them a few days. There was also a canyon, but it was evidently the best place to set up an ambush. Moreover, the people in the canyon would be at a disadvantage, and if they were ambushed, they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. As such, they decided to go through this area of water. Of course, they sent people to scout ahead, and seeing that nothing had happened to them, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Following this, the player army stepped into the area of water, and everyone smoothly passed through. This was quite surprising, as nothing had happened to them at all. Everyone felt that they had been too paranoid, as this was just an ordinary area of water. Soon, 1 million players had passed through the area of water, and the others were about to pass through. They felt that nothing had happened, so they felt quite at ease. However, at that moment, something unexpected happened. Countless ripples suddenly appeared and rushed towards the people in the area of water. Instantly, pained cries sounded out as countless people felt their feet being bitten off by something. They instinctively tried to raise their feet, but because they lost control of their bodies, they fell into the water, and countless things swarmed over, biting off pieces of their flesh. Blood quickly dyed the murky water red, and everyone else was given a big fright and quickly retreated. The three city lords' expressions fell, and they simultaneously attacked. A terrifying power slammed into the water, causing it to tremble as palm-sized ugly fish with sharp teeth to rise to the surface. These are the clown bone fish. Qin had been raising a large number of them before the Divine Fish Festival, and after such a long time, he had hundreds of thousands of them. These clown bone fish's teeth were incredibly sharp, and they could even bite through iron. They were incredibly terrifying, which was why so many people feared Seeping River. These clown bone fish were quite weak, and under the three city lords' attacks, they were all killed. Everyone started to save the people in the water. In actuality, most of them had not died, and only a few pieces of flesh had been bitten off their feet. Everyone understood Qin's plan, and they couldn't help but furiously curse at how insidious he was. This was because they found that Qin's true goal was not to kill them, but to cripple their battle power. Now, these people's feet had been bitten off, and they would not be able to walk at all. In just an instant, another 400,000 people had lost their battle power, and adding on the losses from the traps, that was 500,000 people. Adding on the people who had died yesterday, that was 900,000 people. Chapter 5:16. After thinking about it, they decided to give up and continue onwards. They had already lost so many people before they even saw Qin, and who knew what they would encounter if they continued onwards. Moreover, Great Qin had 450,000 soldiers, which meant that there was one soldier for every 5 residents. Great Qin's population was at least 2 million or so, and they no longer had an advantage in terms of numbers. If they continued to advance and lost a portion of their people, they would be at a complete disadvantage. When that time came, it was hard to say who would win, so they sighed and decided to give up. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, the sound of the air being torn could be heard as arrows tore through the sky and flew towards the player army. The player army was near the water area, and there were no obstacles in their way, making them live targets. The players were unable to react in time and were hit by the arrows. The soldiers hurriedly used their shields to defend, but the massive rain of arrows still caused many people to die. This was especially so for those whose feet were injured, and they did not even have the chance to dodge. The people who were responsible for carrying the injured did not sense the danger and were caught off guard, and they were hit by the countless arrows. Arg! Screams rang out one after another, and blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the already red water even redder. Rumble! Just as the rain of arrows descended, an explosion sounded out, and the ground seemed to violently tremble. Countless people watched in shock as a beast tide ferociously rushed towards them. There were azure cows, wild boars, as well as larger deer and mountain goats. They were all wild beasts that Qin had raised and sold as meat. Now, these wild beasts' eyes were blood red as they madly rushed forwards. Hurry and fire! Countless people shot arrows in terror, but because the trees in front of them were dense, many of the arrows hit the trees. Some arrows were too weak, and although they hit the trees, they didn't cause much damage. At that moment, the system main city soldiers displayed their true power. They drew their bows to the fullest, and powerful arrows shot out incredibly quickly. The arrows turned into black blurs and pierced into the wild beast bodies, causing them to fall to the ground and die without being able to resist at all. After all, these wild beasts were only ordinary wild beasts, and how could they resist the attacks of Stage 1 soldiers? With the help of the system soldiers, the beast horde was reduced by a quarter, greatly reducing the beast horde's momentum. Quick shield! Even though the system main city soldiers acted, the massive beast tide still reached them. The players reacted and raised their shields. It was impossible for them to run, and only by resisting would they have a chance at survival. Seeing the incoming beast tide, the three city lords prepared to attack together, but three powerful attacks shot towards them, interrupting them. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the massive beast tide ferociously smashed into the shield wall. The shield wall instantly collapsed, but this reduced the beast tide's momentum, causing them to slow down slightly. Many people raised their weapons and rushed up. A massive battle between humans and beasts unfolded. It was incredibly chaotic, and the azure oxen and wild boars sent players flying, while the players stabbed their weapons into the beast bodies. Blood, pained cries, and furious roars continuously sounded out. In the end, it was the player army that had the advantage. Not only were there many people, but the system main city soldiers were also incredibly fast at killing the wild beasts. With the players' cultivations, they were able to defend against the wild beast attacks. However, the 400,000 or so beast tide caused nearly 300,000 players to die. The three system main city lords looked at the three people in the distance with serious expressions because they could sense that they were all system main city lords. Why would three system main city lords appear here? And they seemed to be helping Qin. The various factions and dynasty legatees had not told them Qin's true strength in order to make the three system main city lords think that they had the ability to defeat Qin and attack Qin with their full strength. As for whether the three system main city lords lived or died, they did not care. As long as they achieved their goal, it would be enough. That was why the three system main city lords were so surprised to see three city lords. Boom! Another explosion sounded out as 10 black pillars of light shot into the sky, causing the sky to tremble. A massive black magic formation appeared, giving off a boundless aura of death and giving off a faint black light. Immediately, the corpses of the beasts started to go through changes. Their flesh started to wither and fall off, revealing their skeletons. Black flames appeared in their skulls, and they once again stood up from the ground. The countless players were once again given a big fright and started to retreat. However, because the battle had just ended, many players were still standing beside the corpses. The instant the corpses of the beasts became undead, they started to attack the people around them. Many people were caught off guard and were suddenly attacked, resulting in many deaths and injuries. Following this, the players and skeletons once again started a fight. However, the players still had a big advantage. The skeletons of the beasts weren't very strong, and after being turned into skeletons, they became even weaker. The skeletons summoned by the Disaster Cavalry's Undead Disaster were more powerful than normal skeletons, but they couldn't surpass their strength when they were alive. This was because there was no skill that could do this, not even gods. After all, turning a corpse into an undead required a lot of energy, and according to the law of conservation of energy, the undead could not surpass the original body's strength, unless it was supported by some sort of power. Swish, 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 another wave of black arrows shot out from the forest, giving off sharp auras as they flew towards the players. However, they were currently fighting with the skeletons, so how could they defend against these arrows? Soon, many people were injured or killed, and some of the more powerful arrows were aimed at the system main city soldiers. As such, some of the system main city soldiers were also injured or killed. Retreat. Seeing this, the countless faction leaders, including the three city lords, could only yell for them to retreat. After all, the players and system main city factions had suffered heavy losses, and if this went on, they would all die here. However, even though they wanted to retreat, the countless skeletons continued to drag them down, and the arrows continued to shoot at them, making it incredibly difficult for them to retreat. The three city lords wanted to help, but as soon as they tried to, they were stopped by Bai Qi and the others, making it impossible for them to help at all. Chapter 517. Now, there were 2 million players in the Forest of Horrors, and with the system main city's residents and soldiers, there were 3 million or so players. If the player factions added their own soldiers, Qin still wouldn't dare to rashly attack. This attack had failed, and the three system main cities went from attacking to defending. After this experience, they no longer dared to casually attack Qin. With their current strength, they understood that they wouldn't be able to destroy Qin, so they could only defend. This matter quickly spread to the real world, and the player army's defeat caused many people to feel quite disappointed. However, most factions had already prepared themselves for this. With Qin's monstrous strength, they hadn't hoped that they would be able to destroy Qin. They had only hoped to heavily wound him. However, even though they had failed, they had still managed to weaken Qin's reputation. Now, no one was as afraid of Qin as they had been before, as they knew that as long as they banded together, Qin wouldn't dare to attack. Since Qin didn't dare to attack, and they had the strength to resist, why would they fear Qin? There was no need for them to fear him at all. As such, even though the player army had failed, their actions had been good. No one feared Qin anymore, and they encouraged countless people to rise up against Qin's brutality. Because the three system main cities were all on the defensive, Qin didn't dare to rashly attack. As such, the Forest of Horrors was temporarily at peace. There were fewer people on the streets, and it was quite deserted. Jiang Ro went to the Westfall restaurant and looked at it, feeling quite worried. What happened to Zhao Xian? In order to destroy all of Qin's factions, the three system main cities had closed all of their shops. However, because Qin had many shops, there were still some shops that belonged to Qin that had been bought by others. The three system main cities would rather kill innocent people than let them off, and they closed all suspicious shops. Some innocent shops were dragged in as well. Jiang Ro also heard that Qin was in the Forest of Horrors. Because of how big of a commotion this matter was, no matter how much she didn't care, she would still find out from others. However, Jiang Ro couldn't think of any connection between Zhao Fu and Qin, and she thought that something had happened to Zhao Fu. As such, she was quite worried about Zhao Fu. Originally, as Qin continued to develop in other areas, the pseudonym Zhao Fu had used before, which was Zhao Xian, gradually faded from the minds of countless people. Many people wouldn't have guessed that Zhao Xian was Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu was Qin's prince. Jiang Ro wouldn't have guessed that the gentle Zhao Xian who treated her well was the cruel and bloodthirsty Prince Qin. What should I do? Jiang Ro felt quite worried, but there was nothing she could do. Normally, she would go to the Westfall restaurant to find Zhao Fu, but now that it was empty, she naturally wouldn't be able to hear any news about Zhao Fu. After looking at the Westfall restaurant, Jiang Ro could only dejectedly return to her cloth shop and pray that Zhao Xian would be fine. Jiang Ro truly treated Zhao Fu as a friend, and she felt incredibly grateful towards him. It was because of his help that she was able to live a free life. Back at Qin, Qin had successfully defended against the player army, and it was the first time that Qin had gone into a defensive state. In order to defend against the player army, Qin had suffered some losses, such as the clown bone fish that he had raised for a long time. The cows and pigs that he had raised had also died, so Qin wouldn't be able to eat them for a while. However, there were other types of meat that he could buy in other regions. Right now, Qin's main concern was how to attack the system main cities. After all, he couldn't just drag things out like this. Players would respawn near the system main cities every day, and if he allowed them to continuously respawn, the players that he had lost would be quickly replenished. Qin had expended so many players with great difficulty, so he definitely couldn't allow them to replenish their numbers. If that happened, it would be even more disadvantageous for Qin, and it would be even more difficult for him to defeat the three system main cities. However, now that Qin knew that the three system main cities had the ability to break through isolation barriers, if Qin attacked one of them, the other two would definitely pincer attack from the other two sides. This made it so that Qin didn't dare to rashly attack, and he had to think of a foolproof plan before he could act. The countless factions from the three-system main cities all thought the same. Now that they had the support of the three-system main cities, they didn't have to worry about Qin attacking, nor did they have to fear Qin. They just wanted to wait for the players that they had lost to replenish themselves so that they could continue to fearlessly attack Qin. They had received many benefits, and for the sake of their own faction's safety, they were quite willing to do this. Although this attack had failed, it only made them feel a bit disappointed. After entering the system main cities, they calmed down and didn't feel any fear towards Qin. After all, they knew that Qin wouldn't dare to attack, so they had nothing to fear. Normally, before Qin had even acted, countless people would have surrendered or come to ask for peace. However, such a thing was impossible now. As for the ordinary people, because they had just suffered a great loss, most of them only dared to stay within the system main cities and didn't dare to leave in case they were attacked by Qin. However, they didn't feel sad at all. After all, even though they had failed, they had still received some rewards from the large factions, which was something to be happy about. After all, even though the three-system main cities had lost, they didn't seem to have lost at all. They were in high spirits and didn't put Qin in their eyes at all. After thinking for a while, Zhao Fu thought of a plan. However, instead of sending an army to attack, he used another method. It was quite despicable, and he didn't know if it would work. However, it was worth a try. After all, he wouldn't suffer any losses. Taking the 12 assassins and Xianru with him, Zhao Fu set his first target on Demon Tree City's City Lord. Demon Tree City's City Lord was an elderly man, and his body and strength couldn't compare to the other two city lords. Zhao Fu's plan would have a higher chance of success. Zhao Fu didn't care about the young and respected the old, so he decided to target the elderly man. After making all sorts of preparations, they started to act at night. That night, a full moon hung in the sky, and the moonlight was incredibly bright, making it not dark at all. Zhao Fu and the others started to act, and their goal was to assassinate the city lord. Chapter 518. Because Zhao Fu and the 12 assassins all had the assassin profession, it was quite easy for them to sneak into the system main cities. The only problem was Xianru, but with her yin-yang techniques, she was able to sneak into the system main cities without any problems. It was now late at night, and most people were asleep. The system main cities were in darkness, and the surroundings were quite peaceful. Only the cries of a few strange birds could occasionally be heard. Qin and the 12 assassins headed towards the city hall. There were many soldiers guarding this place, so Zhao Fu and the others were incredibly careful. If they alerted anyone, their plan would fail. Right now, Zhao Fu was the most powerful assassin because not only had Zhao Fu passed the assassin's trial, but he also had the Assassin Lord's Ring, which allowed him to use the 12 assassins' power. Adding on the concealment ability, Zhao Fu was able to easily sneak into the city hall. The city hall was quite big, but the central region was most likely where the city lord was. Zhao Fu looked around and confirmed the location of the city lord before returning and ordering the others to start moving. The soldiers on guard did not notice that someone had already snuck in. The 12 assassin legatees' cultivation had long since reached level 2, and with their equipment set's power, it was quite difficult for ordinary soldiers to notice them. Zhao Fu and the others headed towards the center of the city hall. At that moment, the green-robed elder had his eyes tightly closed as he sat cross-legged on a cattail leaf, cultivating. He had never thought that the three system main cities would choose to help a dynasty legatee. This was incredibly disadvantageous to them, and they had already lost in terms of high-end battle power. Not only did the other side have three system main cities, but they also had a dynasty legatee. If they fought, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. The green-robed elder did not know that Qin and the others had 10 city lords, but he felt the pressure from the other side, so he wanted to increase his strength in order to prevent anything unexpected from happening. Even though they had 4 high-end battles, with the combined strength of 3 system main cities, the other side would not dare to directly attack them. The green-robed elder knew this very well, but he had never thought that the other side would dare to assassinate him. Zhao Fu and the others didn't dare to make any big movements. If they made any noise and alerted the city lord, or if they didn't kill the city lord quickly enough, their plan would fail. After all, as soon as there was any noise, the other two system main cities would immediately hurry over. When that time came, Zhao Fu's side would be at a great disadvantage. A gentle breeze blew by, and a dozen guards outside the room had their throats slit. They died instantly, and their corpses were quickly put into the storage ring. The faint smell of blood was also carefully covered. However, at this moment, the green-robed elder opened his eyes and shot out a cold light. The door to the room was also opened, and a black shadow flew towards the green-robed elder. Time was of the essence, and they couldn't afford to waste a single second. The green-robed elder looked at these people with disdain. Even though they were a group of assassins, they only had stage 2 strength. Facing the green-robed elder who had stage for cultivation and a city lord seal, they did not put them in his eyes at all. The green-robed elder casually waved his hand. A green light shot out from the green-robed elder's hand, and 12 small green leaves gave off an abnormally sharp aura as they flew towards the 12 people. The leaves contained immense power, and if they were hit, it was possible that they would be sliced in half. Tuoba Qing understood how terrifying this attack was, and she swung her blood-red sword, sending out a blood-red sword light to block the leaf. Little Shai used his movement technique to dodge the leaf. The others also used their various methods to dodge the green-robed elder's attack. The green-robed elder felt quite surprised. Even though he hadn't used his City Lord Seal's power, he was a Stage 4 expert, and his attack was something that ordinary Stage 2 people would not be able to block. These people were quite strange. Seeing these people rush at him, the green-robed elder stood up and prepared to use his true power to kill these people. The green-robed elder did not put Stage 2 experts in his eyes at all, and if he used his full power, he would be able to instantly kill a large number of them. However, it was at this point that the 12 figures who had been charging toward him suddenly shifted to the side. Then they stood around him, each of them holding out a hand toward the green-robed old man. Gray light shot out, wrapping around their palms. Suddenly, a spell formation formed beneath the green-robed old man's feet. This magic formation was incredibly complicated, and it was made up of 12 circles. It gave off a cold and murderous aura, and the magic formation formed a formless barrier that spread out. This was the combined ability of the 12 equipment sets. Everything is void. As long as one reached into this barrier, all enemies' speed, power, and skills would be weakened. The green-robed elder was quite startled. This barrier could actually weaken his power. He didn't hesitate and decided to use his City Lord Seal's power to blast these people into smithereens. However, just as he was about to make a move, another figure appeared. It was an abnormally beautiful purple-clothed woman. Her body emitted a strange light, and her hands quickly formed seals. 10 purple talismans lined up in midair, emitting an obscure purple light. "Pardon." Xianru gave the order, and the 10 talisman papers turned into 10 rays of violet light that shot towards the green-robed elder with terrifying power. The green-robed elder could sense that these 10 talisman papers were not simple at all, and they already had the City Lord Seal's power. As such, the green-robed elder could only turn his attention to the incoming talisman papers. Pooh! The sound of a sharp weapon stabbing into a body suddenly sounded out. A black-cloaked figure had appeared behind the green-robed elder, and he gave a cold and eerie smile. Immediately, the green-robed elder felt countless traces of deathly aura enter his body. Even though the dagger hadn't pierced any of his vitals, the deathly aura was absorbing a large amount of his life force. The green-robed elder's expression fell, and he tried to use his City Lord Seal to suppress the deathly aura. However, an intense poison also started to spread out. Pooh! The green-robed elder coughed up a large mouthful of blood and stumbled before collapsing to the ground. By now, Countless soldiers had sensed that something was off and rushed over. Although it seemed like everything had happened very quickly, it had only been 3 minutes. Zhao Fu looked at the countless soldiers charging over and said to the others, "Hurry and leave." The others understood that the situation was urgent, so they obeyed Zhao Fu's orders and quickly disappeared. Zhao Fu looked at the green-robed elder lying on the ground. He had never thought that his plan would be so successful. From the start, Zhao Fu had used the 12 assassins to make the green-robed elder let down his guard, while Xianru had attacked from the front. Zhao Fu was the one who had actually attacked. Another reason why his plan had been so successful was that Zhao Fu had used the Death Dagger, which contained a large amount of deathly aura. The user had to consume their lifespan to use it, and he had used it once when he had killed a god. It had been quite effective. Chapter 519. Zhao Fu then looked at the green-robed elder on the ground. The green-robed elder was on his last breaths, and blood continuously flowed out of his mouth. If it wasn't for the City Lord Seal's power suppressing him, he would have long since died. After all, Zhao Fu had used the Death Dagger for half a year of his lifespan, and with the Poison Dragon liquid, it was more than enough to kill the green-robed elder. Looking at the incoming soldiers, Zhao Fu didn't hesitate. He squatted down and stretched out his hand, stabbing it into the green-robed elder's abdomen like a sharp knife. He took out a green City Lord seal, and the green-robed elder howled before dying. It wasn't just because of Zhao Fu's attack, but also because he had lost his City Lord seal and was unable to defend against the deathly aura and poison. Following this, Zhao Fu put away the green-robed elder's corpse and turned into a ray of light as he flew towards the city hall. Everyone in the system main city was shocked. After hearing that the City Lord had died, the peaceful Demon Tree City instantly fell into chaos. "You dare to kill our City Lord? I'll kill you." Demon Tree City's 3 great generals quickly chased after Zhao Fu, and one of them looked at Zhao Fu and furiously roared. Zhao Fu turned to look at the 3 people chasing after him and coldly laughed. He drew the Sky Demon Sword and casually swung it, sending out a massive black sword light that instantly hit the 3 great generals. The 3 great generals were sent flying, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. "You don't even have a City Lord seal, yet you dare to act so arrogantly? Are you seeking death?" However, Zhao Fu didn't pay too much attention to the 3 great generals and rushed into the city hall. He went to the city heart and quickly chose to conquer and relocate it. System announcement. Congratulations, you have conquered a system main city and obtained 5,000 achievement points. System announcement. Because you're a legatee, you have conquered a system main city and obtained a large amount of the region's fate. System announcement. You have relocated a system main city and obtained 890,000 EXP. System announcement. Congratulations, you have obtained 200 war points. Ignoring the system announcements, Zhao Fu kicked off the ground and turned into a ray of light as he shot into the sky and smashed through the roof. Boom! A spear light and a sword light suddenly appeared and gave off terrifying power as they shot toward Zhao Fu. The other 2 city lords had already arrived. After dodging the attack, Zhao Fu was forced to stop and turned to look at the 2 city lords behind him. The 2 city lords looked furious, looking as if they wanted to kill Zhao Fu. "Now you have no advantage. If you surrender to me, Qin, I can spare your lives," Zhao Fu said confidently. However, the 2 city lords coldly harumphed and chose to directly attack. However, Zhao Fu suddenly turned around and continued to fly to the side. He had no intention of fighting with them at all, as there were countless soldiers rushing over from behind. Zhao Fu would not be so stupid as to stay here and fight with them. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless arrows flew over like bolts of lightning, and Zhao Fu unleashed his king's domain. The arrows rained down on Zhao Fu's king's domain. Because there were simply too many arrows, small cracks appeared on the king's domain. Zhao Fu used the full power of his City Lord seal, causing his speed to greatly increase. The other two city lords also quickly chased after him. However, in the blink of an eye, Zhao Fu had already flown out of the city and stood not too far away, looking at the two city lords. However, they did not dare to step out of the city because they instinctively felt a sense of danger. However, Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "What is it? You're not going to continue?" Soldier Forest City Lord coldly harumphed and said, "Call out the people lying in ambush. We won't fall for your tricks." "Is that so?" Zhao Fu asked, but he still did not call out the other city lords. He then asked, "Are the two of you really not going to surrender? If you surrender, both you and your residents will be treated as Qin subjects, and you will still be city lords. We won't continue to fight like this, and you won't have to face death and destruction." "We won't agree," the woman in white replied with a cold expression. Seeing this, Zhao Fu did not try to convince them to surrender. Now, the other side only had two city lords, and they were at a complete disadvantage. If he could subdue them now, Qin would be able to unify the Forest of Horrors, and they would no longer be in a stalemate. Even though this stalemate was not beneficial to either side, it was beneficial to the other dynasty legatees. If the other dynasty legatees did not continue to develop, they would be regressing. After all, the other dynasty legatees were rapidly growing, and Qin legatees would be slowed down. Since Zhao Fu was sure that they were not going to surrender, he did not think too much about it, and continued to fly away. However, the two city lords did not dare to chase after him. Seeing Zhao Fu swagger away, the two of them could only hatefully sigh, but there was nothing they could do to Zhao Fu. Qin's city lords, who were hiding nearby, also left. After Demon Tree City's city lord died, Demon Tree City's players and residents all panicked, not knowing what to do. Of the three system main cities, only two remained. Looking at these players and residents, the two city lords decided to each take in half of them. This made the countless players and residents feel incredibly grateful, because after losing their cities, if Qin attacked again, they would have nothing to defend against. The sun gradually rose over the horizon, and all of the players' expressions changed. They no longer had any confidence. In just a single night, they had lost the system main city. So how could they still have any confidence? This was a heavy blow to them. Even though they had not lost many people, without the sturdy walls, they were unable to gather together, and they did not have any defensive power. They were like a plate of loose sand, and they were easily wiped out. The two remaining system main cities could not afford to have anything happen to them. So the two city lords and the leaders of the various factions started to discuss and entered an emergency defensive state. In other words, not only did they have to defend at all times, but they also had to be prepared to fight at any time in case Qin attacked. They could not be as careless as before, thinking that Qin would not dare to attack. If they were careless and lost another system main city, they would definitely lose. Back at Qin, Zhao Fu had rebuilt Demon Tree City and given the City Lord seal to Xiao Jian. Now, Qin had 11 City Lords, 8 of whom were system main cities and 3 of whom were City Lords of basic cities, making him even more powerful. At the same time, Zhao Fu heard about Demon Tree City's players and residents moving to the other 2 system main cities. Now, the 2 system main cities each have at least 7 million people, and that's not including the countless player villages. What should we do next? Chapter 520. After all, these player villages were in the wilderness, and it would take a lot of time to find them. Moreover, if one destroyed a few, the rest of the players would move to the system main cities, making it much more difficult to attack the system main cities. They would first attack the system main cities before clearing out the player villages. That way, the players would not be able to retaliate at all. However, a system main city with a battle power of 7 million wasn't easy to deal with. So what if they tried to assassinate them again? However, they were incredibly wary this time, so it was possible that they wouldn't be able to assassinate them. Moreover, the player residents were a big problem, so they had to deal with them as soon as possible. Zhao Fu couldn't think of anything, So he asked for all of the system main city's information and looked through it, hoping to find something valuable. After looking through it for a while, Zhao Fu still couldn't find anything, and his head started to hurt. "Your Majesty, your tea has been brewed," a female attendant said as she respectfully brought over a pot of tea. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of an idea, and he ordered people to go to the various regions and buy powerful poisons. This time, Zhao Fu's target was the ordinary people. Even though the city hall was heavily guarded, making it difficult to sneak in, the system main cities were incredibly big, and not every place was heavily guarded. If they could successfully sneak into the system main cities and put the poisons into the wells, they would be able to poison many ordinary people to death. Moreover, Zhao Fu thought about the abilities of his 30,000 skeleton mages and disaster cavalrymen. If they worked together, they would be able to greatly reduce the enemy's battle power. When he thought about this, Zhao Fu decided to discuss this with his generals to make sure that they didn't make any mistakes. Following this, Qin started to buy all sorts of powerful poisons from the various system main cities. He bought hundreds of thousands of packets, which cost him a lot of money. However, this money wasn't much to Qin at all. Qin didn't lack money at all, and if he could achieve his goal, he could throw money at them. This time, Zhao Fu mainly relied on Qin's assassins, disaster cavalrymen, and skeleton mages. Qin didn't need too many assassins, or else they would be discovered. As such, Zhao Fu chose 200 elite assassins and gave them spatial rings that contain a large amount of poisons. Then, the operation officially began. On another night, Zhao Fu led the group to the vicinity of Soldier Forest. The current Soldier Forest was not as lax as Demon Tree City. Instead, it was heavily guarded, brightly lit to prevent anyone from sneaking in. However, Zhao Fu and his men still snuck into Soldier Forest from hidden corner. The city's defenses were quite tight, and there were teams patrolling the streets from time to time. This made Zhao Fu and the others not dare to be careless, and they carefully carried out their plan. Qin's assassins followed the order and went to each well to release poison. Packets of poison were successfully tossed into the well. They melted into the water and did not give off any smell. Most people would not be able to discover that there was a problem with the water. The plan was successfully executed, and the next step was to wait for the right opportunity. Early in the morning, the sun had just risen, and there was a faint mist in the city. It was a cold winter morning, but the commoners still got up and started cooking, preparing for the day. Now that the two system main cities had taken in Demon Tree City's players and residents, the originally sparse city became quite crowded. Nothing had happened the previous night, causing countless people to let out a sigh of relief. However, this peaceful morning was soon shattered. Cries of terror sounded out, causing countless people to feel quite startled. Soon, many people coughed up blood and fell to the ground, dying in just a few moments. What's going on? Seeing this scene, many people could not understand what was going on, and this alerted the city lords and the leaders of the players. After an examination by apothecaries, it was determined that these people had died from poisoning. Following this, they found that the water in the wells contained lethal poison. After hearing about this, countless players felt both furious and afraid. They were furious that Qin had dared to use such despicable methods to sneak in, and they were afraid that they had almost been poisoned to death. The fact that the water in the wells contained lethal poison caused the two system main cities to fall into chaos. The two city lords hurriedly gave the order not to drink from the wells, and they counted the number of people who had died. Each system main city had roughly 200,000 or so people who had died. Many people's entire families had died, regardless of whether they were male or female, old or young. Because they had all eaten food made from the well water, they had all died. This scene caused the two system main city lords to feel incredibly furious, and they made up their minds to kill that dynasty legatee. The leaders of the countless player factions couldn't help but sigh. There was nothing too deceitful in war, and the strong preyed on the weak. Even though Qin had been unscrupulous, that was the reality. Victory was everything. Those who hoped that the enemy would be merciful instead of scheming were no different from idiots. A fair, just and righteous war could only appear in novels. In reality, the weak would perish. Outside Soldier Forest City, Zhao Fu stood in the air and looked at everything within the city, and he gave the order to carry out the next plan. The 10 disaster cavalrymen raised their black swords and roared as 10 pillars of black light shot into the sky, and a massive black magic formation appeared in the sky. Seeing the black magic formation in the sky, everyone felt that something was off. The dead indigenous residents' flesh and blood withered before falling off and turning into skeletons that madly attacked others. Immediately, Soldier Forest became even more chaotic. Some people wanted to run in fear, while others rushed up to kill the skeletons. The sounds of fighting, yelling, and howling could be heard, creating quite a din. The skeleton mages started to use their evil spirit skills, summoning evil spirits. These evil spirits were all transparent, and they flew towards the players. Even though the evil spirits summoned by the skeleton mages weren't much of a threat to Stage 1 soldiers, they posed a great threat to ordinary players. The players on the city walls had been completely unaware when an evil spirit floated towards them and invaded their minds, causing them to howl as their expressions twisted in pain. Everyone else didn't know what was going on, and they quickly went over to see what was going on. However, at that moment, the players who had been possessed by the evil spirits started to madly attack the people rushing over. The people rushing over were quite confused as to why they were attacking their own people, but they were quickly forced to retaliate. The 3 skeleton mages could summon 30,000 evil spirits, which meant that they could instantly control 30,000 players and attack them, causing Soldier Forest to become even more chaotic. After the players controlled by the evil spirits were killed, the evil spirits started to look for other targets to invade and control. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.